Hello, everyone. And my name is Charles Stewart. Welcome to the conference of the Supreme Court of Law for the United States of America. This is the what is the date? The 29th? The 29th of August, 2020. And we're biting off a big chunk here, and we're hoping to move forward by producing dynamic changes in the present governing structure of the United States of America, making big steps away from the confusion inherently generated by municipal courts and governments. They thrive in an environment of confusion because their municipal government is not designed for the people. The common law is, and there's polarity between common law and municipal Roman law, just like there's polarity between Roman municipal law and natural law. Common law is harmonious with natural law and organic law. Roman municipal law is not. It's designed to bamboozle and enslave populations. But as we're starting out here, this polarity that I just mentioned gets to the nature of a historically deep spiritual battle that we're involved in. And in the conference invitation, I spent probably too much length of text merging together historical continuity with the issue of doing an opening prayer. I do believe history validates the idea of doing an opening prayer, and they're under just without a whole lot of fixation on that spiritual religious side of things. I'd like to quickly do a prayer here, and then we can delve into the nuts and bolts. So unless somebody's going to jump up and scream at me, I'll go ahead and proceed. Supreme Being of the universe, champion of truth and justice in this universe, Yahweh Jehovah, God of Abraham, we humbly approach you in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Yeshua. Please help us, deliver us from the forces of evil on this planet. Help us to harmonize with your natural laws of truth and justice and peace. Please send your Holy Spirit to protect this conference from infiltrators and evil people that do not want us following your supreme laws of nature and of nature's God. Help us please to remain vigilant in our dedication to you, and help us to keep in mind the grand sacrifices of the people that have gone before us, that have perpetuated this grand cause of liberty and justice and truth and peace for everybody, such as your precious Son, Jesus Yeshua. And in his precious name, we humbly pray these things. Amen. And from there, I suppose we can touch a little bit on the issue of I'm thinking the larger context of before we get into the coronavirus issue thing. I think it is appropriate to discuss a little bit something that's not specifically on the agenda, but it should be. That's interactions with other organizations and people of significance. I think Lewis here is not familiar with the details of the current conflict that Abraham and Michael and I have been involved in the National Assembly call that is generally led by Destry and Paul. And I think as long as we've got our small group here, that would be a very productive issue to discuss real quick, at least until we get a little bit larger group here. And I'd like to kind of lay some groundwork for talking with Louis about it. Louis, on Thursday evening in the National Assembly call run by Destry, afterwards, Michael and I, well, especially Michael, had confronted Destry, Roger, early on in their main meeting about their closing down the open discussion that usually follows, and it's very productive. And Michael raised the issue seriously and kind of caused a little bit of agitation there because he objected to the way they were running it in such an unorganic and top-down authoritarian manner. And then they railroaded Michael out of his point into a normal business meeting. But then they shut down and they allowed the lines to be open, and we all came in and we started talking more fluidly. And at one point in there, I really seriously confronted Destry, and Michael was pretty serious about it, and Abraham was a little bit nicer than either Michael and me, I think, and we all interacted, and it seemed like we got Destry at least to a point where he was a little bit embarrassed, and he was kind of throwing us a few bones. I imagine either Abraham or Michael could join in and kind of fill in some blanks, but I know that you've had serious problems with Destry and Paul before, Louis, and I thought that you might enjoy that we're rapidly coming to the firm conclusion, similar to yours, that Destry and Paul are basically controlling people, and they don't allow real open discussion here. And I'd like Abraham and Michael to maybe jump in and fill in a few blanks before maybe get your reply on the whole thing there, Louis. Michael or Abraham, do either of you feel like jumping in and helping Louis comprehend what happened recently in that conference?
Well, it certainly was a lot of fireworks for a period there. Voices got very heated. Exchanges were pretty intense, and it stirred up quite a ruckus for a moment there.
Yeah. Why? Why was that? Why did it get that intense?
They were running a top-down authoritarian show. They were stifling communication. Michael was trying to raise points of order, and they were just railroading over him. It's really top-down authoritarian, despotic. That was the objections, and Michael and I both confronted them real strongly on that issue, and the tone of the voice did escalate. They were talking down to us like we were stupid, and we were responding in kind, and it rather escalated.
That is exactly what I would expect. See,
yes,
that's consistent. Yeah, that's consistent in action since 2011. So, I mean, prior to Destry coming aboard and even joining that group when we were all together before the split, and they then started their organization in 2013. So that is consistent. There's been no change, and that's unfortunate. Because we're actually here in Michigan, less confrontational and in conflict with the other group, the ANA group, than that group. That group there is very top-down, authoritative. That led to the split of Wayne County. They attempted to tell us to put a member of our assembly in a suspension status because someone within their shadow hierarchy, their feelings were hurt based upon what someone said publicly and via the internet. And as such, they convened a grand jury and wasted time, energy, and effort to bring the one that they felt, this particular action and then they demanded the Wayne County Assembly take a particular action, and we weren't having that. Outside of it, they turned their back on what was our founding document. So there were a number, of actions. So again, nothing that you've indicated has been a surprise to me, and it was in fact inevitable. So my thing is, how do you deal with other groups where there's less conflict, where you do have some points of agreement, but then there's other areas, especially the authoritative, you must do this, you need to do this, that type of thing. Abe, I think you've got some background noise where you are. You just may want to start this not speaking.
Yeah, that's a lot better.
So, I mean, I'm glad you brought this topic up, Charles, because it's, how do you do it? And that's what my response was today in the email. I think something like this, where you're talking to the people, not a particular organization or group, so it's not a matter of, who's got the correct position, who's finally got it, finally figured it out, and we're right, and this is what you must do. That is a problem. And I think it's up to the people of each state assembly, and my belief, hey, I'm a township, let's go from the township level, and my focus has always been at the locality up. So,
yeah.
and sometimes neglecting, the larger picture, even to the other qualified electors, of the national picture, to focus on what's happening here on our land and building our assemblies, locally. So that's when you do that, you can then bring into existence the upper level, if you will, and I say that for either state or national level, governance. When I've seen that when it starts at that level, that that authoritative, top-down structure persists. So, which is why I've been so, such a proponent of the organic growth at the township level. So, I yield for any feedback.
Yeah.
I'm going to mute myself as well. I've got some background noise here for myself.
All right. Thank you, Lewis. Yeah, and that kind of relates to Anna's email too. We've I can't help but kind of summarize here how you're muted, Lewis. That we've interacted powerfully, and we're getting responses from both Destry's group and from Anna's group. In times past, it was more like we were too small potatoes to even get any recognition from both of those centers of leadership. But now at least we're getting some recognition, and some discussion is opening. And even though it's rather conflicted and competitive, adversarial, I guess, it's at least we've got some back and forth communications going, and that means that we must be doing something right, because we're getting some recognition, and people are talking to us. That's a good thing. Yeah. I yield. Michael, I think you were just checking in. Did you have anything more to add about to bring Lewis up to speed on what happened in the Thursday evening conference?
Thursday evening with Roger?
Yeah.
Well, he has eliminated the after conversation. He turns the phone call off. He, eliminates the call completely, and he refused to acknowledge our objections.
Did he attempt to justify? Not a meaning to interrupt, Mike. Just trying to just that point right there, I'm just confused by that. Did he say, well, we're going to stop the recording, but keep the call board open, or did he justify why there would be no after call?
Well, he really didn't justify it. He tried to say he didn't want, there to be any distractions, and it was a totally moot point because we have our discussions after he leaves the line and goes to bed. And we talk about other things till 2, 3 in the morning. The other night, guys were on there till 6 in the morning. So he has no excuse for what he's doing, and he needs to be confronted on it. And Destry and those guys, they just don't seem to want to confront him on it. And Destry tried to explain to us later in the call that night. He got involved. I think it was about 1 in the morning or something like that. He tried to say that the military is monitoring their call to examine how much progress they're making, as if the military is going to somehow install them as a de jure, interim government, which I don't buy. I just don't believe that. And if they want to claim that, let's see some evidence. And that's where
they've been claiming that. And Nancy, we can finally hear you. Didn't want to, again, Mike, not interrupting you. You've got the floor. But I think that's, Nancy, that's the first time this evening that we've been able to hear any audio of yours. So we did just hear that, Mike.
I've been hearing it. I just haven't been able to talk.
Okay, good. Okay, then I just want to yield the floor once again to Mike. Just wanted to let you know, Nancy, that we can now hear you.
Oh, go ahead.
Mike,
thank
I yield.
Okay, thank you, Lewis. So that's pretty much where it was left. We listened to Destry make his explanation, and if it's true, I could understand their concerns. They don't want us discussing, issues not relevant to reorganizing our states and counties. But it just didn't make any sense because the arguments that were taking place were very important arguments regarding spiritual matters, and there was a couple issues between a couple ladies, April and Cheryl, and it really didn't get out of control, and it wasn't lengthy. It happened a couple times, but it was not a major problem like they were trying to make it to be. Roger just doesn't like being confronted or challenged, and neither does Destry. And I get that. We all have egos. We all have got different issues, but this is not about them. This is an effort to reorganize and get ourselves in a position to have a voice heard. And make a difference in the tyranny that's beginning to surface and control. And I just feel that it was a very disingenuous excuse at best, and it's very suspicious. It's very suspicious. But here's the problem: nobody hardly stood up. And they couldn't because Roger, and this is the other point that needs to be made, and I almost forgot, Roger muted the call for everybody, and he selected a few specific people that he did not mute. And I was in the queue trying to make a point or ask a question for over an hour, and he never would take my question. The week before, the same thing happened. There was a question as to why were the Colorado 9 arrested. I knew the answer. They were charged with paper terrorism, and also I mainly wanted to make the point that they were arrested for simulating a legal process, which I don't agree with. It's tyrannical. The government had no right to arrest those people, but that's what happened. I pushed *6 to be in the queue, and Roger would not take my cue. He would not answer my cue. So again, that's an organized effort to suppress due process, suppress free speech, and he needs to be, confronted. This cannot be let go. It needs to be confronted. I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That was a good summary. And Michael really indulged them, Louis. You can tell Michael's got a pleasant tone of voice. He doesn't raise it easily unless he's got something really important to say. Roger just entrenched against him. And then later on, Destry was giving color of legitimacy to Roger's totalitarianism, and that's where the rubber really met the road. To summarize, one of Destry's biggest arguments was, well, we got our own little group behind the scenes that's making these decisions. We've got a private group that's got the right to assemble privately. And now the rest of you have all got to go along with what we decided in private. And he said part of that group is directly linked to their main enforcement contingent that's behind them is, I believe he said, Navy SEALs. So they've got their own particular military faction that they're tuned into. That is at least part of the behind-the-scenes decision-making process that's deciding what to prioritize in these conferences that are supposed to be for everybody. They got a private group deciding what should happen in the conferences for everybody, for the public, for the National Assembly. And at that point, the National Assembly becomes subjected to the private interest group that's setting the agenda. And I didn't draw that out as well as I'm drawing it out here, but I tried to confront him about it, and things got escalated and intense there, and I rather raised my voice quite seriously to Destry about it, and I ended up, I had to walk away and pass the microphone over to Michael to defend our collective position because I'd just gone pretty ballistic on Destry, that kind of garbage. I yield.
Charles, if I may, I've done that. I've done that in the face-to-face with Destry. She just first joined that group. So, we had we spent 3 months in a battle, face-to-face, every monthly assembly, to battling that shadow, what I like to call a shadow, unelected government.
Yeah, it's a private interest group. It's a private interest group that controls everything. They're not there for the general people.
And I've tried to hold my tongue on that matter because of my personal involvement in the past and knowing how they operate on an intricate level. So you've got to let people experience it because you really can't explain. People say, well, everyone, sometimes people don't get along. They disagreements. No. Okay, no. Not when one was an officer at various levels, even at the time that Destry joined. I'm a bit surprised, though, that what I'm hearing about Roger, that's a bit surprising to me. That was not, how he interacted during the few times that we did interact. And again, this was some years ago. This was somewhere back between 5 to 7 years ago. So that I'm a little surprised about. I have not been surprised by anything that I've heard regarding Destry, though. Nor Paul and I never had a direct issue. If that's the Paul Jr. that I've spoken of on the past, younger brother Adam, very good man. We've had some good conversations regarding various subject matter. That was never directly, at least on my end. Now, you don't know what, what lurks in the hearts of men, but not directly. So,
Louis, may I?
Yes, I yield.
Yeah, this is Michael. I just wanted to follow up on your comment there. Roger and I go back quite a long time. When I first heard about Roger. I had never met him. I was actually at a meeting. This was several years ago in Sarasota, Florida, here just a couple counties away from me. And I was at a meeting in a private home, a picnic, and there were several people gathered around a gentleman speaking, and it was Roger Dowdell. And a friend of mine and I, a retired military intelligence guy, we walk up and start listening, and here Roger is talking about this guy that is in the common law movement of in L.A. that is causing lots of trouble. And here he was talking about me. And I'm standing there, and he didn't know what I looked like. And I'm standing there with 5 or 6 people standing around him, listening to him talk about me being a troublemaker. And so my friend and I, he's a retired, much older than me, and he was just really amazed at what we were hearing. And so we just kind of stood there and smiled at each other and listened to Roger talk about me. And it was total BS. It was total lies. And so I finally, several minutes later, spoke up, and I said, would you like to talk to the guy that you're criticizing? And he says, well, sure. And I said, you're looking at him, and he looked like he saw a ghost, and he didn't stand around too much longer and walked away. And we've had bad blood ever since. But last year or so, we have kind of started, being friendly, and I even went to a couple court hearings with him regarding here in Manatee County. Chris Hopkins is tangled up in a case with Roger and Joaquin. Joaquin has an arrest warrant out for him because he didn't go to a court appearance, and they put a warrant out for him. And this Chris Hopkins guy, his wife is dying, and he's in a real difficult spot because he was a witness at one of Roger's grand jury meetings, and now they have charged him with a crime. I believe it's simulating a legal process. I'm pretty sure it is. So anyways, we have, reached out to Roger to try to, patch things up, and we spent several hours, several different days going to these court hearings as, support. We were there in the audience being supportive of Roger's efforts and trying to be, a team player with Roger, and yet he still treats me like this on the call, and it's just unacceptable. Furthermore, another lady had tried to get in on the queue. Cynthia, who is my fiance, she tried to get in, and he would not take hers either. He actually removed her from the queue. Myself, he left me in the queue but would never answer it, and I sat on queue for over an hour. So this is totally tyrannical in nature and dishonest, and it's unacceptable. I yield. Thank you, Lewis, for letting me intervene there.
And thank you, Mike, for sharing. I mean, it's that type of direct knowledge of interaction with the people that we're discussing, that needs to be shared. So I appreciate that. I'm somewhat familiar with the NLA group. At one point in time, again, we were even involved with them, and Gary Jolly and here in Michigan, and John Darash in that group, or Derek, or whatever his name might be, and it had some issues there as well. So I mean, and it's my involvement or our involvement with some of those groups that allowed me to be able to identify some of these very same actions moving forward. And whereas I may have spent 2 years time of my life with a particular entity attempting to build, and another year with another, and it got to the point where I'm not going to waste time on that.
Right.
I'll be 55 January. I just don't have. I just can't. We don't have the time to waste. So when we see those type of actions, that type of tyrannical traits and personality traits, where there might be, especially with censorship of the board. What you just shared is definitely a pet peeve of mine, because I've gone through it with
Right.
several groups and have my voice suppressed. Sometimes mine individually, or sometimes I might have been a representative for other people, which I really get offended at. And we've taken some action, so we can take actions to correct that. And that's what I'm doing right now. Even with the group that I'm stay plugged in with, and we may have some issues, and we're trying to work it out, which is that group that's the Republic with a K, formerly known as the Beacon 37 group. And I think for us here on Michigan, in our assembly, our Wayne County, our Michigan Assembly, we're actually most in line with. But again, I know at least 3, if not 4, different groups here on Michigan alone that are claiming to be the Michigan Assembly. And at some point, you would think that there would need to be a consensus, amongst the groups to move forward in the best, or as Charles likes to say, the optimal manner versus the de facto, and we could come to a consensus. But when you've got this, hey, we've done it right, everyone else is wrong.
Yeah.
You got any questions? Ask. It doesn't work. So,
if I may, thank you. If I may briefly, I have often listened to Paul in Destry and tried to be as objective as possible. And for the most part, those two men I don't really have a problem with, especially Paul. I have found Paul and I to agree on almost everything. And Andrew also up there is another one I like when he speaks. Destry, for the most part, seems to be pretty straight, but he just seems to be connected with Roger, and him and Roger are teaming up, and they seem to defend one another, and it's just not acceptable. I think that, I should probably just leave it at that. I'm repeating myself, but I just want to leave it at that. I feel that they need to be confronted somehow, some way. And if they don't want to be confronted, then I'm not going to have anything to do with them if they don't want to allow due process to take place. I yield.
I don't know how you confront them, Mike, on their platform, and I don't know if that's something that you want to do. It becomes very adversarial. I've done it in a face-to-face manner, let alone something you're talking virtually or online where there can be all type of censorship for those whomever's controlling the board. I would think, can you get those members that are of like mind, or I don't even want to call them members, those people that would be participate on those calls, to come to a more open platform such as this that allows for other discussion, an open discussion after the call. That was my reply in dealing with others, because I think that when you deal with the group itself, for whatever reason, the group goes into this self-preservation mode, and it's very defensive. It's very adversarial. So it's like if the people of the group say, hey, we're like-minded, if we can come together on this point. We may not agree in these other areas, but those other areas are not the priority at this time. We may debate those from now until, sun goes down, comes back up next year, wherever. But there's certain areas that we can come to an agreement on, and can some type of consensus be arrived at there where we can move forward. And then we can reach, across these group lines. The de facto is always talking about reaching across what do they call it? Reaching across the aisle, and coming to some type of bipartisan, agreement, because that's what we'll have to do. And there'll be some other areas that we'll have to set aside. Now, we know that we can do that. Can these other entities do it? And some of the people that are in controlling positions, because they'll need to be bypassed. And And some of them will take offense at that. We received notice that, hey, people didn't ask to receive this an invite to this call. But no one objected. And Charles, from the very beginning, said, if anyone has a problem with this, please respond. We'll remove your name, in his language. But no one questioned. One thus far that I know of. Charles, has there been more than one that requested removal? Okay, thus far one has requested removal from the mailing list. So I think it's the people, because the organization or the group will defend its position, its thought, its mission. We're right. Everyone else is wrong. You need to join our bandwagon. It's all or nothing, instead of trying to build a consensus, which is what I believe Charles has been putting forward from the very beginning. So with that, I yield.
Thank you, Louis. Destry and the other group, and a lot of the problems coming through the Beacon 37 Republic with the K group, they're addicted to the top-down authoritarian model. Apparently, it's beyond their capability of comprehending that this can work in a grassroots bottom-up model. Either that, or they're outright control freaks that are here to destroy us, and I don't like to think that way about a lot of these people. But after a while, after explaining it from a number of different angles, how grassroots bottom-up not only can work, it has worked in the past. In ancient Israel and in England prior to the Norman conquest, this is how it was done. And they're totally oblivious to that. They continue to insist on top-down authoritarian control. And so that creates a problem. That's time for that reverberates back to Jesus sending the disciples out to separate the sheep from the goats. You got goats there that insist on doing things their way, and they're not reasonable people. You can't reason with them about what's in the best interest of the community. So it becomes problematic. I'm kind of thinking, Nancy, did you have a comment?
Yes, please.
Please speak up. You're off the mic. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I can barely hear you.
I was wondering if if it were possible to just send an email to the ones that are not acting like that and ask them if they agree with the way it's being done, and if they don't, would they like to reform or maybe join another group that wants to
If I may, though, Nancy, Charles, respond to that. Nancy, that would be seen as a direct attack on those organizations, and I would advise against something like that.
Okay.
Because
is there a standard procedure?
Well, in fact, many groups, or some groups, I should say, believe that their membership list is protected, even though there's no such protection. It's freedom of information unless someone says that, but they believe that their group, their email list itself is protected. So if you acquire an email list by some means, which typically is an accident of theirs, and then solicit that email group for any such meeting, some groups will receive and have taken that as an act of aggression.
Okay.
Again, that's the group defending themselves. That's the group. That's a perfect example of what I've been discussing when the group itself or the organization will defend itself and they see its members as being the body. And if you are soliciting the body for another action other than what they have, quote unquote, approved, it can be seen as an act of aggression.
May I? This is Mike.
Yeah.
I think I've been given the phone numbers of a couple of the gentlemen, and I'm going to contact them directly and ask them, like the lady said, if they agree with what's taking place, and if they have a problem with it, I'm just going to ask them if we can somehow bring it up and have due process, take place. I think that's the way it should properly go forward, is to request that due process take place, and if they don't want to, then I'm pretty much ending it with that group for myself.
That would make more sense.
And Mike, I'm not in disagreement because you are involved with that group. So I was referring to perhaps a solicitation from a third party, someone not involved in that group, to participate in something else is seen as an attack. I'm not deterring what you're saying.
Yeah.
A member of the group, that makes perfect sense. I yield.
Yeah, I agree. I yield.
If I might, I believe it's past we've gone a little bit over an hour here, I think, in our conference, and I can't help but think that our low turnout here so far might be a reflection of maybe there's been some type of behind-the-scenes effort to warn people not to come into our conference or something. In past conferences, we've had 3 or 4 times as many people as this by now, and it's really surprising how we've only got 5 people here well after the first hour. So I'm kind of thinking
Agreed.
that we should. Go ahead.
Sorry. I found something online that you might be interested in. It's called Secured Party Creditors on Facebook. And there appear to be, and this is just on that I've had responses from work, there appear to be a couple hundred of them. And they're all working with each other. Now, a few of them are advertising a product that help that I'm not really sure is 100%.
Nancy, if you might hold that thought, because I'm familiar, and I've seen some of your comments in the group. I am in that group. The deal is that when we're talking, when we discuss, I've been a member of that group for a number of years, but when we discuss, that's an outreach piece. So I'd like Charles to be allowed to finish his thought on perhaps what might have affected the level of participation on this call, because, Charles, you're right. There's about a 75% reduction all of a sudden after a consistent participation rate that was at least 3 times, if not 4, what's here today. So if you want to finish that, I mean, in my opinion, I don't know what's happened. I didn't see anything other than the dialogue in the email thread. But I yield for you to continue your thought there, and then Nancy, you can perhaps bring that up, that group discussing some outreach and growing further. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Louis. Yes. Weird things do happen. It could be the sign of the moon or something, or synchronicities just happen. But I can't help but think that this is a little bit suspicious, especially after Michael and I so courageously confronted the main group where we've been drawing a lot of our recent participants from. So it's hard to say what's going on there, but I just wanted to voice the concern and then go ahead and follow the agenda pretty much here and talk a little bit about our coronavirus verdict and try to at least touch with the group here on a few of the pertinent issues. If we're going to stand up and speak out courageously against this evil agenda to vaccinate people without their consent and reduce America to a military police state, I believe our most powerful legal position, lawful position, is through a jury verdict. And thereunder, we need to be discussing in these conferences regularly with optimal wording for that jury verdict, so that when we finally get to a point where we've got 12 people, responsible people, reflecting a serious community consensus to sign on to it, then we've done our homework and we can go ahead and move forward with it in a quick and efficient manner. My God, we should be doing it. We should have it already done by now. It's certainly ready. The larger community is ready for a jury verdict right now, telling Gates and Fauci and the others that what you're talking about doing is unlawful. You need to stop it now. And if you don't, and if you move forward with forcible vaccinations and things like this, the common American people may resist you with deadly force because you guys are being criminals. So anyway, that's, to my mind, that is the priority on the table of moving forward. And I think this is a rallying point around which we can draw in a lot of people, and our numbers may be small now, but I do believe we're basically the only game in town. All of the other groups are too timid to do anything seriously confrontational about these slave traders and homosexual child rapers. Everybody's too timid. Destry was doing all that kind of stuff in his conference. Oh, we can't do this, we can't do that, we'll upset things. Well, gee whiz. But thereunder, unless there's objection, I'd like to kind of go through a bit of the main points on the agenda here. And I think that probably will help us to broaden out into some of the broader issues that are in the background. And so from our small group, one of the advantages of a small group, it's real easy to poll the group and see if we've got consensus to move forward in this direction, or if somebody really thinks there's something else more important. Do we have consensus to move forward with focusing on the jury verdict, or is there something else somebody would like to chime in with? Nancy, did you have something of priority there that we needed to talk about?
Well, it's not really priority, but I found that when people shy away from confronting major behavioral issues, it's usually because they either agree with it, or they are involved with it, or a friend is. So if they're allowing a behavior, then they're probably not going to correct their own. Mm-hmm. So maybe instead of trying to argue, or I would say reason, but it doesn't sound like they reason, maybe just start looking elsewhere, because I'm finding people everywhere. I just don't have the credibility to draw them the way I need to, because I don't have a good presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And I really would like to, because most of us came into this out of something that we needed. something that we were involved with, something we had an issue with. And that's pretty much it.
You're breaking up there pretty bad, Nancy. We can barely hear you.
Sorry. I don't think it's a case of they're not willing. I think it's a case of they're in the middle of a situation. They don't know where to turn to. They don't know what to do. They don't know. So they offering to help them for money, which doesn't necessarily have their best interests at heart. So if I had a presentation that would give them something to start with, read this and come talk to us.
Yeah.
Because everybody knows there's something wrong with our government. Everybody does.
Yeah.
I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's where I live. Let me. I've got a different speaker. Hang on a minute.
Hi, Scotty.
Is this better?
Maybe a little bit.
Better? All right, hang on. Let me see if I can adjust this.
This cost us.
Is it better?
Maybe a little bit.
All right. It's where I live. They've got 5G right out here. And I think they're trying to force people to switch.
Well, maybe so, but
You sound good right now. If you can keep that wherever you are right now.
Okay, I'll stay here.
Yeah, that's much better.
all right. Can we move ahead here, Nancy? Did you make all your points?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry.
All right. Scotty, how you doing? Scotty? Okay,
He's muted. Scotty, you can unmute him. Yep.
Well. Can we can we go through the thing on the coronavirus issue here, Lewis? Can you pull up the specific section of the jury verdict complaint on screen share there so that we can look at that. Go to the last page 3 and paragraph 4. I'd like to read that briefly into our record here. Yes, you nicely highlighted it there. And in an update of this section, I'm going to put this paragraph 4 in position of paragraph 1 because I think it leads in well, and I think that would present a better format for the discussion. But this is specific findings of fact and conclusions of law related to this coronavirus thing. And at this point, this rough draft of the wording for this one paragraph reads as follows here. It's just one longer sentence. I'll read it here for those of you that are not in the screen share. We find unanimously that the emergency alarm over this coronavirus is vastly overrated and overemphasized, and that while many of the remedies prescribed in response to this declaration of emergency are generally beneficial in promoting public health, a vast majority of these prescribed remedies are actually detrimental to the general health and welfare of our common American people, period. And so that's one standalone sentence, paragraph, that I'd like to move to section number 1 in this part of the document. And briefly, I'd like feedback or comments or questions if anybody sees any problems with that that particular wording there. If there's any objections or constructive criticism, I would yield. Anybody?
I don't have any objections.
Did you say you have no objections, Nancy?
None.
Okay. I'm thinking the previous paragraphs get into details, and I'm thinking another similar paragraph as this one, but halfway between the detailed stuff and this paragraph would be good, and it would read something like the specific thing about this warp speed going on with the vaccine distribution and inoculations of everybody. I think we need to add another paragraph saying immediately following this one is the first paragraph, saying specifically that the prescribed remedy of the vaccines are seriously unproven. They have not gone through scientific testing, and there's mountains of evidence that these are actually detrimental to the general health and welfare of our common American people. I think that needs to be inserted as a paragraph in this findings of fact and conclusions of law that our jury is going to present also. Any objections?
There's no possibility for injury.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, in response to that, Charles, once you say that there's mountains of evidence to support that they may even be detrimental, with one proof of claim, when it's been required to produce those mountains of evidence, do you think that statement is necessary? I don't. I think that it might be sufficient to the statement of everything other than that everything that you said I'm in agreement with until that claim is placed in there, because then it places a responsibility on whomever is bringing forth the claim to produce those mountains of evidence if the other side simply says proof of claim on that statement.
No.
I think
I dare suggest that's outside the parameters of due process, Lewis. That would be true in contract law. Yeah, well,
okay.
All we're citing is that the evidence exists, and this is common knowledge. And our jury has found that mountains of evidence exist. The trial's over.
That's necessary if we've said simply your first portion of your statement, which said what there has been no or we've deemed insufficient. Was it scientific evidence or research presented? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I think that. Do you not think that stands strong enough on its own, Merritt? That we've got to add to that?
I'm kind of inclined to believe.
How about negative averment?
Who was that?
How about negative averment? Because I've been reading documents that indicate that they have no evidence, that they never tested. So how about if we ask them to provide documentation that this does not harm us?
Oh, they could just fabricate that.
Well,
and negative is a different action than a jury verdict.
Right on, Lewis. What we're proposing now with this jury verdict is after we've asked the questions. This is what we're working on. What we think will be our conclusion, and we can, as we're working towards the jury verdict, we can ask them all kinds of questions. But the exercise here is to try to compose our jury verdict, and at that point, we're not asking questions. We're telling them what the laws of nature and nature's God is really all about here. We're making statements.
You're not leaving anything unturned that they could come back with.
Right.
Well, the jury's not. Say your jury failed.
But juries that follow due process, like we're doing, never fail.
Right, but if it goes like before Supreme Court or something, and they say, well, your document erred because, or you failed to provide proof, or you failed to address this issue, therefore we find it doesn't apply.
there's two essential ingredients to being a warrior in this battle. One of them is intelligence. The other is courage. And the
Right.
argument you're making here is an argument based on a lack of courage, sister. I'm not saying specific. It's probably just
On a lack of
habitual.
what?
Courage.
On a lack of.
A lack of courage.
Oh no, I'm.
Because
Okay.
the Supreme Court doesn't have any jurisdiction. Read the Seventh Amendment. Once we've got a jury verdict, they can't mess with us unless they assemble their own jury. And when is the last time you saw that municipal government Supreme Court assemble a jury? They don't do it.
That just happened in Michigan. They were looking for a way. They were looking for a way to combat people that come into court and ask for a change of venue or claim they're private or sovereign or more or whatever. They were looking at a way to shut them down. And they had,
I'm sure they're.
Pardon?
I'm sure they are.
So they had it wasn't a grand jury, but it was a fact-finding thing where they had the governor, several judges, prosecuting attorneys, sheriff.
Nancy, may I ask a question?
Point.
No,
ahead,
may I ask just a quick question? Because I'm not familiar with that, but I'm not. What Nancy's speaking of wouldn't surprise me at all, though. I mean, I'll tell you that. But let me ask you this, Nancy. Were they looking at a jury verdict, or were they looking at a man or woman and their private, documents or whatever they were bringing forward, whether it be a foreign judgment obtained by a notary through any other administrative process or any of that stuff? Or were they looking at what's that? Private documents. Okay, then it's not applicable to this conversation. Then I would say, I would submit. Yes, I would. Because what we're talking about here and we want to isolate on is a jury verdict, which is being presented, and we can have this discussion longer on Monday if we can't have it on this call, versus, you've heard me say this before, the individual man or woman in their private capacity bringing forth whatever action. You're talking about a jury verdict, which as Charles has mentioned, some constitutionally protected issue versus the private man or woman, which does have some constitutional protections, depending upon that man or woman's ability to argue that point. And we want to move from that, from the position of, well, if I'm in this situation, I might do this, I might do that, or I know someone who has done this, and this was successful in this particular venue, to some type of consistent outcome, and using jury verdicts to reach those predictable outcomes, and then having something to apply. So if you know, whereas a jury verdict, a private jury verdict, had been contested by any of those other agencies, then that would be applicable to our current discussion. But if we're talking the private or individual man or woman in their private capacity serving whatever paperwork, even a foreign judgment would not apply to what we're discussing here, in my opinion.
Okay. All right. That's good news then.
I didn't hear Nancy's last words there.
I said that's good news then.
Okay, well, it does sound like perhaps we're coming to a better comprehension of the power of jury verdicts, because jury verdicts cut through a lot as a matter of law. Jury verdicts are the highest decision-making process available, not only in the USA, but on the planet. we've got extreme amounts of power at our fingertips if we can just get organized behind a competent strategy here.
Okay.
And Nancy,
Charles, might you speak to the power of the jury verdict just a little bit? That what makes you make that statement? Because some might not be familiar with why you would make that statement. I yield.
Sure. But first, I'd like to encourage Nancy, when she's got thoughts about what to insert into the jury verdict here, like what we're talking about, please, Nancy, write it down in an email, however you think optimal wording should be, or work from the document. You can get a copy of the document and you can edit off of that. But please communicate to me and send it to me, and we can work towards our own private consensus as we're working with the group too. So yeah, that'd be.
The only thing I was worried about is where I've seen a judge throw out a jury verdict a couple of times.
Well, if it's people that are not competent in common law that are submitting the jury verdict, judges can get away with a lot of that kind of stuff because they bluff. And they know that if it's a person, a people that does not really comprehend what they're doing and where the real horsepower's at, they can bluff them. They can bamboozle them. You know, so a lot of good things that a lot of good people have done in the past have failed just because the corrupted judge made an accurate calculation that this person won't know what to do if that corrupted judge just really railroads them, and that's what happens in most cases. Yep. So, yeah. All right. Well, let me continue on and address Lewis's issue here of why. One of the statements I made about the juries being so powerful is such a powerful statement. And Lewis, can you help refresh my memory the specific wording that you were hoping me to elaborate on?
Well, my statement was I believe that many may not be aware of the constitutional protections of a jury verdict, and how that verdict cannot be challenged by others unless they put their own jury together to override that. And I'll let you take it from there, because it's not about the individual man or woman when it comes to a jury verdict, because that's not worded anywhere within the Constitution other than private. I yield.
Yeah. The reference in the Seventh Amendment to, quote, the rules of the common law, unquote, those common law rules require that anytime a jury verdict is arrived at, it cannot be questioned by anybody except another jury that's correctly following common law due process. And a second jury can be obtained to correct an error of a first jury. If there's something obvious there, then another jury can be assembled to correct the errors of the first jury. And even there have been instances, apparently in history, where there have been corrupted juries that have issued false verdicts. And that issue is discussed in Magna Carta, where the people get their houses burned down if they're part of a corrupted jury. So there's a lot going on there. But those rules of the common law require clearly that no jury verdict can be contested except by another jury. Okay, that I've got case law citations. I think it may be in one of the memorandums that are an accompaniment to the treason document there. That there's case law that says that the only way you can contest a jury verdict that's already been formed, like we're doing here, is if the person criticizing us, our jury, assembles 11 other people along with themselves to form their own jury verdict. And see, that gives us a sense of stability. It's not just one Supreme Court judge, municipal jurisdiction, Judge Roberts. He can't do it. All 9 of him and the other 8 Supreme Court municipal jurisdiction judges, they can't do it. They're not a jury. They're only 9. And so we're comparatively immune from 99.9% of what's normal human concerns, because it's only 0.1% that somebody out there is going to both find something really that we really did wrong, not following due process properly, and be able to get 12 people of good reputation to sign on and declare that our first jury verdict was all screwed up and their newer jury verdict is better. That's the only way we'd face any of the liabilities that you're describing here, Nancy. That's the only way that the lawful process here that's required would cause us to face any legitimate liability. Now, of course, they might turn it into a military police state and start railroading us right now. But that's not nothing on the legal chessboard, the lawful chessboard that we're trying to engineer our remedies through here. Go ahead.
And if I may, and then Nancy, I'm gonna Nancy, if I may, really quickly, and I want to yield the floor to your response. The one thing I think that's not only applicable to Nancy's concerns, I also think that what you said, Charles, is applicable to some of Mike's concerns. So you hit the nail on the head in terms of what you needed to discuss. One of the issues that Mike has brought up on more than one occasion, and I think rightfully so, was a phrase called simulating a legal process. And
yes.
He's mentioned on prior calls, referred to the issue of Terry Tressel there in Florida in the grand jury situation, and how the man was arrested, railroaded, and ended up dying in custody of the state. And this was, I think, a military veteran as well. So the one thing that differs from what Charles has just stated and the grand jury situation is the grand jury, by legislation, was hijacked during the 40s when they actually removed the people's position to convene a grand jury and charge that responsibility with the district attorney. And that's what, and Mike, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, it was the district attorney that came after Terry had kind of taken control, or at least tried to convey to the other members of grand jury their authority on the matter in front of them, and he then became a target for that district attorney. But in terms of legislation, that was done with all of those administrative acts that in the 40s. So that's why I believe, and this is just my position based upon my research, and I'd like anyone to bring forth any additional information that would move me from that position, which I believe that what Charles has brought forward and is attempting to bring forward to everyone's attention is that the jury verdict itself has the power and has not been the ability to convene a jury. See, the ability to convene a grand jury is what they've removed from those certificated persons in the 40s from the public, but not the ability to convene a jury. So not dealing with the 25-member grand jury with the 2 alternates or whatever that ones, think that form needs to be, but something that remains true to the Constitution. I would even say, again, and I'm the least religious on this call, I guarantee you, but that is spoken of in the ancient scriptures, no matter Hebrew, Israelite, Christian, what have you, regarding the jury. And I think that that's where our protections might be. So with that, I yield. And I think Nancy had a response, and then Charles.
Well, I was wondering about the grand jury, because it used to be the grand jury's job to bring a charge, but since there is no grand jury anymore, it's the prosecuting attorney. And if he doesn't read the charge into the record, you can go after his public hazard bond and remove him from office. But
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charles.
Well, I think that's really taken us off point. I've discussed before. Maybe you missed the discussions, Nancy, where grand juries are a mechanism of the Roman civil municipal government, and if we're decentralizing the monopoly on the local district attorney or the state attorney general, they got monopolies on the ability to prosecute criminal complaints, and they only use grand juries to give them color of legitimacy to support their monopoly on prosecuting criminal complaints. What we're talking about doing, in contrast there too, is allowing all qualified electors at the grassroots to bring criminal complaints. And we go straight to the trial jury. There's no need for a grand jury as an intermediary and distracting step. We have our criminal complaint before the court from a qualified elector, like Abraham is doing with the coronavirus thing, and then we go straight to the jury verdict, like what we're doing here. And there's no need to assemble a grand jury. Grand juries are only there to give color of legitimacy to the monopoly over the criminal prosecuting process that the district attorneys and attorney generals have. Does that make sense?
Everything makes sense except who are you charging? Any government agency?
Well, look at the trial jury complaint there. You'll see that Abraham is bringing his complaint against Bill Gates and Anthony Fauci and a whole bunch of other public servants in Homeland Security and FEMA to back. Yeah, it's already well outlined. If you look at the web links in the documents in the screen share.
Okay, all right. I can't get on the screen share. It won't let me.
Okay, well,
so is this your original document and you're still working on them?
Pardon me?
Because I've got the original.
I didn't hear your first sentence.
Is this your original documents that you were working on and you're just reworking them?
Well, what you're looking at in screen share and on the web links through the invitation email here, those are our most current working documents. I don't know what you mean by original, but these are the most current that we've got, and they're constantly being upgraded, most of them.
Okay, because I can't get them to open.
Well, why won't they open? Are you getting security?
We could send you a copy directly to your email.
Okay.
Charles, send her a copy directly to her email. And if you mean by original, it was crafted by us. We put the wording together.
Okay.
May I please? This is Mike.
Yeah, Mike.
If I may, I just wanted to speak to Lewis's points on the grand jury in the 1940s regarding what they did. It was a judiciary committee in 1946 that removed the word of presentment. Are you aware of that, when that happened?
Yes. I thought it was 45, 46. I knew it was in that range. I think that was when the hijacking, in my opinion, what I like to call it, occurred. But yes,
yeah, absolutely. Yep, that's exactly what they did. They removed the ability of the jury to present, and it's been totally hijacked by the prosecutor, by the attorney office, and we have been left out of the equation. And my point is this: let's say we conduct our jury, we go through due process, and determine that, this Fucci and all of this nonsense is criminal in nature. They have no right to do what they're doing. What is it that we expect to occur from our actions, and what is the end goal that we expect to achieve?
Serving them notice that if they violate the verdict on that jury determination, that verdict, that the people who believe that a crime is being committed from the state to the masses, to the people, are in dire jeopardy of having full retaliation to defend their rights. Letting them know that the people see it as a trespass.
Right. Okay.
This is on this one issue. This is not an end result as to what we're doing. This is on this one particular issue.
Right. I understand. I agree. Yeah. But what is it that I just feel that we could be going down a road of a lot of effort and work, and they're going to ignore it, and that's what they continue to do. And it comes back to the question of enforcement. How can we enforce their attention to our determinations and consensus? That's the real enigma that we face. How do we force them to recognize our voice, our determinations?
Can I jump in and respond to that?
Yes, Charles. I yield. Thank you.
Please.
Yeah, Louis, can you scroll up the screen sharing there to paragraph 2 on the supplement to the main jury verdict there? Yeah, there we are. This section of the jury verdict that we've worked up addresses that issue, Michael. And let me pull up my own at the same time so I can scroll more effectively. Yes. To briefly summarize what I would like to read here in this second paragraph section is that we're laying the groundwork for enhancing our legal position for if and when armed military officers come out and start trying to do acts of aggression against us. Somebody's got background noise there. Can somebody mute the background, please? Mute, please, the background. Somebody?
Abe,
Thank you.
I think that might be you.
Yeah. So the agenda, the long-term agenda, the nature of this long-term spiritual conflict since Christ and Moses, the battle is continuing on the same, just the names and places have changed. This battle between the forces of good and evil, with this coronavirus thing, they have an agenda that they are following, and they are going to come against us with military force to the best of their ability in the current scenario in this battle for the minds and hearts of the people. And if they've got a whole lot of people behind them and there's no real serious legal opposition to them, they will have a cakewalk and they will come in with their jackbooted Nazis and they will reduce us all to slaves, those of us that survive. Our task at hand here is to mount a legal position, lawful position, on the chessboard of a Supreme Court of law. We are defining the parameters of lawful process here, due process of law, the rules of the common law. We are the ones defining this in an objective manner. They're subjective. We're objective because we're looking at the big picture. We're the people. We're the consensus builders. And they're under... what we're doing is we're laying a foundation for armed resistance, for us being warranted in resorting to armed resistance when they aggress against us. See, it's a game changer if we're aggressing against them, if we're issuing arrest warrants just out of the blue without a real good reason. then they can claim that we're the aggressors. We're the ones breaking the peace. But this is an important issue. It relates to common law trespass. Who is, quote, the initial aggressor, unquote? And that's the issue. And when they come against us trying to force vaccinate us, when we say no, and if you try to force me, I'm going to shoot you, then it's real problematic if we don't have a jury verdict behind us. But if we got a jury verdict behind us already telling everybody and God that we've got the right to resist with force these unhealthy, health-destroying vaccines that are not scientific with deadly force when they're forcibly trying to be put into us, then we've got the moral high ground and the legal high ground for resorting to armed resistance to these jackbooted Nazis. Does that kind of make sense, Michael?
Yeah, I had to unmute. Sorry. Yeah, it makes sense. I can't.
I would also add to that, though, that if they're going to come and inject us anyway, and I'm telling you, if they come through my door, they're going to meet gunfire, a lot of it. And that's going to happen anyway, without the jury verdict in place or not, right? But if you have the jury verdict in place, you could say, I served you advance notice, damn it.
Yeah.
Okay.
At that point, hopefully it won't need to go to gunplay. But Michael, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just, I feel that they will not recognize determinations by our jury. They'll say that it's null and void, it's not enforceable. I think to avoid getting in their trap of being charged with, simulating legal process, paper terrorism, I would prefer to be a part of a jury system that is for the purpose of informing and educating military officers that would come to our aid in our resistance to being forcibly shot with an injection, because that's what they're doing. They want to shoot us with a needle and inject us with poison. That's the elementary truth and bottom line of what they're trying to do. But to avoid entanglement unnecessarily with the law, I would be persuaded to say that we would be better served to try and do this in a way that is for the purpose of fact-finding and informing military allied forces. Otherwise, we do stand a chance of, being charged and arrested by the tyranny. And we could still achieve the same thing and have lawful fact-finding take place with affidavits, but we would just simply name it a different name than, a jury. Any comments on that? I would love to hear the.
Yeah, Michael.
I would have. I yield to Charles, and then I would have a question regarding that, Mike. This is Louis.
Well, certainly. Thank you, Louis. Thank you. It sounds, Michael, like you're purposefully evading, avoiding tapping into the power of the Seventh Amendment that references that the power comes through jury trial verdicts. Are you purposefully trying to avoid bringing that power to bear in our modern effort to resist these coercive vaccinations?
No, I'm just trying to avoid.
You may not be comfortable signing on. That's all.
At this stage, I'm trying to avoid being entangled unnecessarily with criminal charges.
Possibility.
I agree. Yeah, possibility, right. I agree with your goal, your motive, and your, reasoning. I don't disagree with anything I've heard. I'm just trying to be, wise here and and avoid entanglement.
Yeah, he doesn't have to sign on to it. That's all.
Okay.
Well, if I may ask a question, and I because I think I get it. You know, I know for a fact. And I'll tell you this. You know, Charles and I have had conversations, and we don't always have the same position. We had to come to an agreement regarding public and private, and what those words meant, and what those venues were. And within the what we agreed to call the de facto public, and when I say that, I'm referring to the public trust created, you know, with the New Deal in 1933, codified through a number of statutes through, you know, from 33 to 35. I think that what we're talking about right here, and the right for the public to do certain things with regards to a presentment, as you pointed out earlier, Mike, that occurred with the administrative procedures throughout 44 and 44, 45, 46. I'm in agreement with your concern regarding the grand jury, because I could put my finger on a point in time in a legislative act which I feel they chose to control or manipulate that particular specific power or authority. With regard to juries and the jury verdicts as protected by the Constitution, I do not have the ability to put my finger on a legislative act which altered the common law in some way, shape, or form. So, although I agree with what you're saying with regards to the grand jury, I then disagree when I substitute the jury verdict for the grand jury, because the jury, especially of private people on the land, I think is protected. And I think when you go back and really examine everything that you've taken a look at, just as our private right to contract, if private people have come together for a jury verdict, I believe that there does need to be another jury verdict, and actually with people comprised of equal or greater standing. I don't think that they can get a group of United States certificated persons to override the jury verdict of private people. I don't think those United States certificated persons have the ability to do so in their status, and I would be prepared to argue for that point. So I guess I'm in agreement with what you're saying with, you know, one entity but not the other, and I would ask you to kind of examine the jury verdict, the power of the jury verdict, and then we have this conversation again, perhaps.
Louis, can I ask you a question? Are you suggesting that since they did not take away the power of the jury verdict like they did in the grand jury, then that means they have left it open, they left that door open for the people to use it?
That's exactly what I'm suggesting. I don't know if they left it open or if they even had the ability to close it. But point being, here in Michigan, I've seen some.
They did not see it as a threat.
I don't know if they saw it as a threat or not, or they felt that they did not have the ability to alter it. But what I've seen in some of the recent, even state Michigan Supreme Court verdicts, regarding property rights and how they referenced the common law, they referred to it as some other law form, such as the common law. And that phrase is repeated throughout one of the most recent Supreme Court verdicts regarding taking a property in violation of common law. And the entire verdict was based on common law.
Okay, well then let me ask you this. They can't be stupid. They must be very smart in protecting themselves. I could see the reason why they would circumvent the grand jury. Otherwise, the grand jury left in the hands of the people will indict government left and right. So they want to get rid of that. Absolutely. Then why would they leave the Seventh Amendment open, realizing that it has as much power to indict government officials and indict captains of industry equally brazen as the grand jury can? Why would they leave that horsepower open to us? If not,
because in my personal opinion, I think that would require a constitutional amendment. And in the other area, they had the ability, as being the administrators of the trust, to simply implement the administrative rules.
So they left it open because they had to.
It's much simpler to implement any rules that they choose, acting as administrators of the public trust, than actually amend the Constitution of the United States. I yield.
All right, so they left it open. They left it open because of.
May I? This is Mike. I'd like to respond directly to Louis.
Yeah.
I believe what has happened, the state courts have acquiesced in the tyranny of the federal courts. Presentments are no longer being conducted. The prosecutor controls everything. The fox guards the hen house, whether it be the federal court or the state court or the county court. Presentments are just forbidden. After the 46 Judiciary Committee ruling on rewriting the rules of procedure, the rest of the nation acquiesced to that tyranny. And that's where we're at now, and that's exactly what Terry Trussell here in Florida was attempting to do. He was actually forging a runaway jury, a runaway from the establishment. Roger Roots writes an excellent paper on this subject. If anybody would like to read it, Roger Roots, a runaway grand jury. And Terry Trussell was simply attempting to convene a jury to examine criminal behavior on the part of the government of his county regarding a school system. And he was charged and imprisoned, and he died in prison, in jail.
Oh, shit.
No, I agree. I agree 100%. The issue is this, though. He was attempting to, as I understand it, at the time that it was going on, because at that particular time, unfortunately, I was a member of the NLA here in Michigan.
I was too. I was state coordinator for Ohio.
And as I was here in Michigan. And that was led to a conflict with who was actually state coordinators and some other issues, and John Deresh stepping in from a national level into the Michigan group and actually directing as he saw fit, which he had no authority to do, and that is why we actually disengaged. So, but during this actual time, I was one that was bringing up and talking and had conversations with John directly as to why aren't you engaging with this man down here in Florida who's been arrested? And they would not engage, in my opinion. They did not engage, and it is my opinion, and anyone can, if they'd like to have that discussion outside of this call, I would encourage it. But I felt that they abandoned the man.
Yes.
At the time, and he was adhering to what they were putting forth, and they abandoned him and wanted to talk about everything but Bundy and everyone else. I didn't want to talk about that. You've got Terry Trussell here arrested, and he was named the jury foreman, wasn't he?
Yes.
And then attempted to educate those members of the grand jury. Did he not?
Yes, he was the official grand jury foreperson.
Exactly. And in my opinion, they did not support to the level that I felt they should, and we know what happened from that point. My point, Mike, is that I think that they had at least a position on that because of the administrative acts that were adopted by the states. Not that it was righteous. That I see they had something to point to use to attack. On our calls here weekly, I've said many times, if they can't provide proper drinking water, they continue to allow the corporations to poison the populations with food, so they can't. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or whomever that authority is ridiculous. But what they can do is go to war on individuals or nations, and it matters not. That part I know. So I try to look at it from what would they use as a weapon. And I see those administrative actions of the 40s as weapons to be used against the public. Once one has corrected their status and become a private member and acts accordingly, I do believe that there are some protections based upon the Constitution. And here I'm on Michigan, so I often refer to the Northwest Ordinances for an additional level of protections. And I look to the Articles of Confederation for yet an additional level of protections. And within the common law, those historical documents can be used accordingly for the protections of person and property. I believe outside of that, or without a correction of status, and again, I'm speaking, this is what you're hearing now is personal opinion, not the official position of anything. I believe that once that's done, as a private man or woman on the land, here, at least on Michigan, I don't know what rights are protected there on Florida, but here in Michigan, that the common law does provide some additional protections. So I think over the last couple of calls, I think you said that you were going to take a look at some of the things there in Florida, and I'm really interested in hearing, any of common law protections or lack of, and perhaps other options that might need to be considered for that particular state. I encourage everyone on this call to research their state specifically, and the common law protections. Yes, I yield for any feedback.
Yeah, Louis, I came into the call a little bit late, but I heard you talking about the Seventh Amendment, and you're wanting to assume an alliance on the common law, correct?
Greetings, Nikki. I don't know what portion you came in on, but your input is always welcome. And Charles, if you had any response to anything that was just stated, I think I might have heard you while I was speaking as well. Please feel free. But Nikki, I yield the floor.
Okay. The thing is, I want to bring your attention to the fact that in 1785, the dictionary definition for states was nobility. It wasn't like that prior to 1785, but it was like that in 1785. That Constitution, the preamble to it, was penned in 1787. So we, the people of the united nobility, in order to form a more perfect union for ourselves and our posterity, and their posterity, by dictionary definition, esquires are the younger sons of noblemen. That was a definition. This is contemporaneous exposition of the words used in the day that preamble was penned. So when the 10 Amendments, of course, there were good people there that, with the Declaration, they realized it probably is going to come to this at some point in time in 1776. Number one was to dissolve the political bands. Number two was to assume amongst the powers of the earth a separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitled them. And number three was to declare the causes which impelled them to the separation. So what I'm bringing to your attention, that suits a common law. If you look at common law, stare decisis was what common law suits are predicated on. And stare decisis, I'm sure you know what that is. That is, whatever was ruled before is going to be ruled again and again and again. Okay? So they already set the pattern of how they were going to rule on behalf of themselves and their posterity based on the Esquires and the Uniform Law Commission that was put in place in, I think it was 1892 here. So there is that particular aspect of the Seventh Amendment that actually is predicated on the 10th Amendment, because the 10th Amendment was essentially nullified when the 17th Amendment came in. We have had no representation under Article 1, Section 3 of the U.S. Constitution since that was breached with the 17th Amendment and nullification of the 10th Amendment. We've had no representation from 2 senators from every state to represent them. The people who elected them, directly elected their senators for their state senate in Congress since 1913, when the 17th Amendment was established, based on, of course, the Federal Reserve Act coming in that year. So,
okay, that's what I was about to ask, Nikki. Was the 17th Amendment but I think I forget 2 things I get sometimes confused: the necessities clause and the 17th Amendment. Let me respond, if I may.
Sure.
To what you
I'm just putting that out there for fact.
Okay. And I appreciate that, and I always appreciate what you contribute and your emails as well, because you bring, again, what I like to say is verifiable information, and I am familiar with stare decisis and many of the points that you just mentioned. What I'm referring to, and again, I think that everyone needs to examine their state. And you being on Pennsylvania, you've got a lot to go by. But
yes,
I'm here on Michigan, and I've taken a look at. That's why I've mentioned before that I tend to lean to the Northwest ordinances as well as the decisions by the Michigan Supreme Court. I can still, the federal Supreme Court decisions, there are many still that I have issues with right now. Dred Scott, others during that time frame as well. So I'm in agreement when you bring, or at least attempt to highlight, when we use the phrase the common law and the judicial decisions, okay, that have taken place up to this point. I am fully aware. What I look to do is look at those decisions within our model, the framework that Charles is presenting, and I'll say this: he starts and others starts from the super states level down to the super counties level, down to the counties and the townships. When I have been involved from the other way, from the township up. And I believe that that's where my focus has been. So when I make those references, I'm speaking of the protections that are in place when we are engaging the de facto corporation, as opposed to attempting to come, with some other form, because they are on the books, and because of stare decisis, and because of the Northwest ordinances, and because of the Articles of Confederation, that we're able to do certain things, and because of even the Constitution, although, again, I only access that document and reference that document when I am attempting to notify the corporation of their restraints. Okay, again, the document that I lean more towards is the Articles of Confederation, but that might be a personal choice. So, Nikki, you and I are in agreement. Really, I just wanted to make sure that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I go ahead, make sure of what, and then I'm going to add something about the Northwest Ordinance that is kind of a bit of information as to, you know, everything else. But go ahead.
Okay, I will do. But I will say the Northwest Ordinance is, because there are more than one, and many often refer to only one, and there are more than one that outline the suggested governance of this territory. But again, I don't think that what we are discussing, we're in conflict. Anyway, it's about how we use, how we apply, you know, the knowledge or that's been acquired through our
sure.
research over the years. So with that, I yield.
Sure. And Article 6 of the Northwest Ordinance, it says there shall be neither slavery nor involuntary servitude in said territory, otherwise than in the punishment of crimes whereof the party shall have been duly convicted. Okay, so right there is the 13th Amendment, that there's no involuntary servitude. However, anybody who checks that little box to say that they are a U.S. citizen or a citizen here, you know, just goes ahead and puts themselves into voluntary servitude, and the legislative actions of the House and the Senate, you know, and Congress assembled now have the authority to rule over them. So that by stare decisis would come into like a feudal jurisdiction. I'm just putting that out there for, you know, extra information. And with that, I yield.
Abraham, Nevada, I would like to ask a question. That somehow this body of information that you guys just introduced about the 10th, the 17th, and the other one has something to do with the 7th?
With the 7th Amendment, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, the one that Charles refers to as gives us the authority to go ahead and conduct a jury trial. And you brought up the 10th and the 17th, and it sounded like you were bringing up in opposition to the 7th.
Well, not opposition to it necessarily, but who it was actually written to help, you know, out under the way the 1791 is when the U.S., the United Nobility, okay, based on the word definition of states at that time, the United Nobility accepted the 10 amendments, so that applies to them, the Amendment 7. Do you see where I'm going?
So you're saying, so to be clear, I just want to understand your translation here, since it's a little indirect the way you're spelling. You're suggesting that the 7th Amendment is made for a specific class of persons.
It's made to protect a specific class of persons.
Okay, I get it.
And
May I?
based on the when it was drafted and the contemporaneous exposition of the wording of that day. However, they breached their contract with us because it was fraud from the get-go, and you know, we know who we are. We bargained our full faith and credit for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And when silver was taken out of the coin, that was a breach of Article 1, Section 10. We have to remember who we are in the scheme of things. We are their creditors, because it's us that are bonded, bundled, and monetized based on the 13th Amendment and voluntary servitude for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, which we no longer have.
Okay, may I,
Does that
please?
make sense?
Okay. So this is Mike in Florida. So everything you've said is to make the point that we're under tyranny and it should not be recognized. That's how
That's
I'm
a good way of putting it.
Yeah, I believe we already know that.
I know, but now you know why.
My time is very valuable, and I don't like to reiterate things that we already know and have concluded on, and I feel it was a big waste of time what we just did. We were on a path discussing the 7th Amendment and the proceedings of forming and creating a jury, and we were sidetracked with this information that we all know is already so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I came in late, so I apologize. Sorry about that, and I'm mute, and I won't talk again.
Now, Nikki, I thought it was brilliant.
I thought it was off point also. Thank you, Michael, for saying that. It is an interesting sideline, but it's technically off point from where we were at. And I'd like to say also, to just kind of put a cap on that, that's all presumptions. Technically, as a matter of law, we're not under tyranny. That's all a presumption. And if we start breathing our own form of national Supreme Court of Law jury verdicts back into life, we can take the power back immediately. But they are going to wind down that entire tyranny system that Nikki took us so off point there. That is a clear and present danger that we do need to address with the most powerful tools that we've got at hand. And that's why I think we do need to revisit the horsepower in the Seventh Amendment, like was our main focus here. I yield for the moment.
Okay, if I may. Okay, but simply because of the time frame, it's about 7:17. After I would like to yield to Charles for any concluding statement for the first portion of the call, and then you can go on and conduct the after call, if we will, with the open floor. Just my opinion on what Nikki has just added, and of course I was involved in that conversation because it affected something that was, I feel, dear to my heart with the Northwest Ordinance, and I have done quite a bit of study of each of the ordinances. The one thing that she did mention about the 13th Amendment, the Northwest Ordinance came into effect with regards to that statement regarding the enslaved people some 50 years or so prior to the Constitution. I again look at the Constitution as a limitation of the authorities, if you will, and the level of reach of the de facto, not something giving any rights to the people. So although it was a bit off topic, I do think that there was some valuable information that could have been received by some that might participate on this call or even listen to this recording afterwards. I would like to yield to Charles for any statement wrapping up or concluding the first portion of the call. And, of course, yield to Charles for the after call, which much more dialogue might take place. I yield.
Thank you, Louis. Yes, let's put a wrap on the main portion of the business call here. I would like to summarize where we're at with the jury verdict here that we're working on. I do believe this is the most powerful tool available to us to confront the agenda of evil military police state that's coming at us. And I look forward to talking with people. I encourage people to look at this and if they've got ideas about how to improve on our jury verdict, like I asked Nancy to submit her own written text that she'd like into it, and I encourage y'all to, so that we can build together an optimal jury verdict that has the most horsepower available under the Seventh Amendment for grassroots common people standing up and taking our country back. And so that's kind of the wrap I'd like to put on the business meeting for the time being. Louis, I know you've got other duties that you've got to attend to at this point, so could you release your screen share there so that I could take control easily if I want to share my screen? It looks like you've done that. And I guess at that point, Louis, it looks like a wrap on the main business meeting here for me, and we can go into open discussion. Are you going to leave immediately, Louis, or can you kind of hang in the background a little bit there?
Thank you. I'll hang out in the background for another 15 minutes or so. But thank you. You've got the floor. I'm completely muted at this point.
Thank you, Louis. We were engaged there with Michael on Seventh Amendment issues there. Michael, can you salvage anything from our previous discussion and help us resurrect that focus of that discussion again here, if you like?
Yeah, before I do, I just wanted to clarify that, I meant no disrespect to the lady, Nikki, I believe is her name. However, when you come in late on the call and you bring up information that's mostly off topic and spend quite an extensive amount of time doing so, it's a disservice to the body, and that's all I was making. The information was true and accurate, and it is valuable information to those who were not aware of it. But back to the Seventh Amendment, and what we're doing is, this is the enigma that we face in regard to either enforcement or evading prosecution for, tyrannical charges of simulating a legal process or paper terrorism. And I think it would serve us best to avoid that trap. And I think if we were to find a way around falling in that trap, I'm not saying I have the answer to avoiding that trap, but avoiding the trap is the goal, and that's what we should seek at this stage. There's background noise. I don't know, static. Anyways.
Background noise. Somebody mute, please. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that sounds like the background noise is cute. Can I respond to your main point there, Michael?
Yes, sir. Please.
There's 2 points of force that are in discussion here. One of them, the more prioritized one in my mind, is when they come to our front door with a needle and they say, it's time for you to roll up your sleeve and get your vaccination, or else, you are going to get your vaccination now. Or we're going to put a bullet in you and kill you. That is the option that a lot of us are really seriously concerned about at some point in the future being a reality. And in contrast therewith, it seems like you're concerned about the possibility that we might get railroaded without due process of law because of simulating legal process, and thereunder the force will come against us. So there's 2 scenarios within which force can come against us. One of them is clearly on the agenda. They're clearly talking about doing the forced vaccinations against us. And the other one, simulating legal process, that is a serious possibility, no doubt. But with all due respect to the good patriots that have been railroaded under that presumption, they're not really. I saw the Larry Goodman trial on the Colorado 9, the last one, the 9th one of the so-called Colorado 9. Larry did not mount effective counter-argument on the points in question, on the necessary elements of due process of law, mens rea, corpus delicti, malicious intent, things like that. And I dare say the vast majority of people that have been railroaded have not focused clearly on the due process related issues. And at least for me personally, and the people that, if anybody under this this current strategy that I'm promoting gets in trouble, I'll bust my buns to do everything in my power to assist them. And so my arguments will be available. And I've had so many experiences confronting de factos where they just run and hide. They won't talk to me. That it's old hat now. I no longer want to even go in and beat up on them because I always win. They just run and hide and nothing changes. And so I'm at a point where I need people behind me that are willing to sign on to jury verdicts to make big changes here. And that's generally why I'm trying to do this. And I guess that's slightly off point from the issue that to back off from our jury verdicts it seems like what you're suggesting here, or just making it an advisory or educational thing. That seems like it's retreating from a remote possible prosecution conflict and danger, and it's leaving us precariously open for the bigger danger that's coming at us. Trump is talking about before the November elections and stuff, getting these vaccines out here and rolling them up. Yeah, I yield. I think I made my point. I yield. Go ahead.
Okay. I have not heard Trump say he was going to force vaccines. He said, and I have paid close attention to his comments on this issue, he has said that he will use the military to distribute the vaccines, but there has been no discussion of anything being mandated or forced by the Trump administration. However, Joe Biden has declared or stated that he feels they should be forced or mandated. So there is not. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I yield.
If I might, I saw a video clip today where Trump was saying everybody's got to get the shot.
Okay, well, if that is true, which I have no reason to disbelieve you, then we have an additional concern. That is not a definitive statement, though, that everybody should get them. That is a recommendation. When you define those words, it's, if he's simply advocating everybody get them.
Right, but
Michael, there's no doubt what their agenda is. They've been trying to pursue this agenda for quite some time. They just needed the right crisis to bring forward so they can trick everybody into it. I've been watching these little dastardly devils for a very long time, and I can smell their moves.
Yeah, I would concur with that, with both of you. I agree that is their end game. Whether or not Trump is a part of it, that's to be debated, but that's really not the issue. The issue is the tyranny that is approaching is real. It has been planned for quite some time. I agree with that, and we definitely should prepare. But I'm not saying throw out the baby in the bathwater. Okay, there's definitely some merit. There is merit, not just some. There is much merit to what we're trying to do. All I'm saying is we maybe should consider rewording what we call the jury. Definitely call it a jury, but I think for informational, educational, or instructional purposes, I think instructional purposes might be a good addition to defining our jury. But to claim that we are creating a court system separate from, what the de facto is, I think would cause us eventually great harm and trouble and entanglement. And at this stage in the game, it's just not, in my opinion, if somebody can disprove me and show me a better way, I'm open to hearing it. But in my opinion, at this stage in the game, we should not risk being entangled and put in jail at this point. It's more important for us to organize, strategize, and assemble ourselves in preparation mode rather than go to jail. At this stage, it's just not worth it. I yield.
I feel the roller coaster ride. It certainly is an exciting roller coaster ride, There's a lot of twists and turns, no doubt.
In my mind, to carry on with the point of engagement, for backing up one step, Mr. Trump is talking about the military distributing the vaccine, like I believe you said there, Michael. Why do you think Mr. Trump is emphasizing the military being involved in distribution of the vaccine when it's just a package? These could be distributed to county health agencies in very quick and efficient manners without the necessity of involving the military. But Mr. Trump seems to be super enthused about involving the military in, quote, distributing the vaccine. It doesn't say how far they will distribute. It doesn't say whether or not they will be distributing it through the needle into the arm, that far of distribution. That detail is ambiguous, left by Mr. Trump's words. But the very idea of aborting normal distribution processes that are already quite efficient in America and bringing in the military to be involved, in my mind, that's a very, very clear indicator that Mr. Trump has a military agenda going on here, and it's very likely, I'd say 80-90% indicator that those military people are going to be involved in the forcible vaccination of our American people.
I agree.
I can't disagree. You make a valid point. I'm aware of what he has said, and I have my own concerns as well. Your point is well taken. I agree. I yield.
Thank you. And I'll try to send you a copy of that clip with a web link to the video clip where Trump is saying...
I can send you 50 clips where it's all spelled out.
Well, where Trump is actually saying stuff like everybody's got to get the shot, that Mike seems to have missed some of those points.
Well, Bill Gates puts it all on, all the frosting on his cake is layered with forced vaccinations, all of them.
Right. But Mr. Trump...
I'm aware.
Go ahead, Michael.
Yeah, I'm aware of Bill Gates and others making those declarations. It's just the Trump issue I have not heard Trump mandate the issue of vaccinations.
If I may?
Or saying, Scotty, go ahead.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Charles. Yeah, from what I've seen, it sounds like he is saying the military do. It seems to me like whoever has Epstein's evidence has something on Trump. I've noticed a big change with him. You understand, in May, he gave over control. All this politics is fake since May. He gave control to FEMA. And then about 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, with the HB, I think I mentioned it a few times, the HB 7120, that was before the defund the police thing. That actually does defund the police because now the New World Order, the global police force has carte blanche. So this was all planned. This is, as Abraham said, this is meticulously planned. He didn't say it on the level. This is planned at a level that exceeds the finest military precision I've ever seen on this planet. So they're using AI and going back in time, and this is insanity, how everybody is so mind-controlled. So, yes, it sounds to me like Charles is right. He is talking about the military giving people shots due to, just like Abraham said, for whatever XYZ, and they could fake anything. This is insanity at a level that is, this is spiritual, people. We need to be spiritual. They can't control our spirituality. They can control with fear some stuff, but if you're spiritual, you're fearless. So yes, it sounds to me like Charles is right, and that's what this is about. He is just reading some scripted whatever. Somebody's got that guy like a puppet. It's that simple. I yield there, and I agree with Charles on that. Okay? I yield.
Thank you, Scotty. Michael, Abraham, anybody?
Yeah, Charles, this is Michael. I just to clarify, I don't necessarily disagree with Charles' point. I'm just saying that we really should be careful when
Michael,
we make.
it's acknowledged trepidation. There's no doubt there's trepidation there. I agree with you 1,000%, man. And I feel queasy as well. But there is definitely trepidation there. I get it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify. I'm not disagreeing with Charles. I'm not disagreeing in the fact that Trump could be a part of forcing, a vaccine upon the entire country and all the American people. And if that day comes when they knock on my door, I'll either not be here or I will resist. That right is guaranteed to me. I don't need a jury determination for that. However, I understand the point of getting our consensus acknowledged and recognized lawfully so that we can show it to military that could intervene on our behalf and change their mind. Having a process that we can show consensus among the people is a good thing, and I'm all for that. It's how we achieve that proof of consensus is what I'm trying to, figure out and determine. I just, too many people get invested. I yield. Go ahead.
Mike, I think you will agree with me that the people's government positions are vacant. The people have not been acting in their own government's capacity for a very long time. That's why all these jackals are in power to begin with, and that's why we're facing these issues and equations so ferociously as we are. And one of the very small things that they left available to us is to be able to assemble our jury trials. If we had done this 20, 30 years earlier, maybe we could have headed this off so we wouldn't have to deal with this equation. So it almost sounds like you're suggesting at the very last moment, if we still acquiesce and do not fill those government positions as rudimentary as they are, we will go down without even assembling any of the people in any kind of capacity that's considered remotely lawful to defend what positions we have left to defend. So it's almost like going down without any kind of a fight.
No, I'm not saying that we don't form and replace those vacant positions such as the jury. I'm all for that. I just think adding a word to the definition being instructional jury, I think would be appropriate, or educational jury for the purposes of instruction. Somehow we need to word it. It's still lawful. It's still a jury. It's still the assembly of we the people. But to make it appear and sound like it's a court of the de facto, we would cause ourselves problems. And I think just by keeping it separate, defining it in a way that is unmistaken, the motive, intent, and the goal would be defined in our name. Instructional jury. Educational jury. And instead of a court, it could be a citizen's court of review, or the people's court of review.
Better choice of word.
I'm sorry?
That was a better choice of word. Please don't use the word citizen. It gives me the creeps.
Yeah, I understand that, but the founders used it, and I know that the tyranny was alive and well at the day the Constitution was finalized, but the people, the assembly of the people, people's court, something like that, rather than calling it just a court.
The Supreme Court is the Supreme Court of law.
It is.
If I might.
I agree, but we've got to be wise as serpents and harmless doves. The devil is seeking to whom he may devour, and Right now, they got the power, the guns, and the men, and we just got a few people, and all I'm advising is somehow let's be careful and wise and prudent, and I yield.
Agreed. 100% agreed there, Mike. None of us want to...
If I might.
I yield. Go ahead.
If I might. Michael, to draw out the main issue here a little bit further, would the type of court process that you're visualizing, would the previously existing phrase of be applicable of the phrase moot court? Is that what would you suggest we try to proceed as what has been known as a moot court with no real authority to issue any lawful jury verdicts?
See, I wouldn't consider it a moot court. I feel that it's as valid and lawful as any assembly or body the de facto has. But to stay out of their trap, we need to use the language that would protect us. When the consent of the governed is made, it is the primary force that law recognizes. Not men, not the de facto, but law. And that just because we change the name doesn't nullify our validity of our consent. Changing the name does not do that. It is still the consent of the governed. It is primary.
Well, I maybe I'm misinterpreting or misapplying, but once we get 12 signatures on the document, isn't that evidence of the consent of the people?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. It is.
What I want, if I may, just briefly, a few words. What I want to stay away from and avoid is simulating the de facto's characteristic, the name.
Well, their entire judicial structure is not. They don't have a single court of law in their entire federal governmental court system. They don't do courts of law. I think we're sufficiently distinguished by what Abraham seems to recognize well as a very provocative phrase there in the title we've chosen of the Supreme Court of Law. I'm inclined to believe that is such a radical phraseology that it removes any remote possibility that we might be imitating their municipal inferior court jurisdiction.
Well, I can't argue with that. All I can say is that we've seen them in action. They have arrested people for trumped-up charges of simulating and paper terrorism. And personally, I am not ready to sacrifice my freedom over such an issue at this time. It is too premature to sacrifice my freedom.
Well, you mean to risk sacrifice. You're not. If you signed on to the jury verdict right the way it is, you're not 100% certain that that's going to cause a sacrifice of your freedom, are you?
No, I'm not. But
well, so it's a risk.
It's a risk, and the risk is demonstrated by past performance of the de facto in several states. I witnessed it happening in the 90s. We've got background noise, extremely bad.
Yeah, Abraham.
Okay.
Abraham, please mute.
Yeah, it was so bad I couldn't even hardly hear what was being said. It was like a static. It was electronic confusion, noise.
Yeah.
The phone line must have been causing it. But anyways, I witnessed it in Ohio in the 90s. 4 people that I knew and saw get arrested, go to jail, lose. One lady lost a lot of money and a lot of property because she continued to fight it, and the charges and the fees and the fines just escalated. Another man was on the run for over a year. He finally got caught up in Alaska. And the Colorado 9, Jerry Trussell. I see their past performance as being very, very suspicious, risky, and that's why I want to avoid being in their trap. I really don't want to repeat myself anymore on it. I've said it enough. I apologize for being repetitive.
Well, we're good. We're kind of picking at a bone here, and hopefully there's some treasure inside of it after we pick long enough. Terry Trussell and the others, the Colorado 9, in my mind, chances were very good that they wouldn't have gone to jail at all if before they started doing their radical activism, they had composed a jury trial verdict to declare that their actions were legal and lawful. See, none of them have done anything like this. They goof around with the stupid grand jury stuff, and they do all kinds of liens and all kinds of other things that end up blowing up in their face, and the de facto comes in with their SWAT team and drags them off to jail, and nobody's doing what is clearly, from the wording of the Seventh Amendment, the most powerful tool available is our jury verdicts, and nobody's using it to keep Terry Trussell or anybody else out of jail. I yield.
If I may?
Scotty, yeah.
Yes, the Colorado 8, actually I tried to help that Bruce guy. He was just too far in and he couldn't. They just keep you busy. However, I just posted a link in the chat. It's about the censorship. The way I see this, now you got to realize I'm not well spoken. I'm a visionary and I envision stuff. I'm not able to relay it with words. But I see some good in this by going after, yes, using the juries, obviously, doing complaints, which can be done by mail, and whatever few people, because the evidence is out there. They're censoring and they're hiding anything that goes against the public, scripted BS. That's the finest propaganda money can buy. And they have a lot of money because they print it up. So the deal is, the evidence is there. We have to go after them. You have to go after the lower people. We can't go after the military. We have to go after these paid actors that have, protection. And as I said, the police are going to be losing their immunities as they get defunded. They're not working as a police anymore. They don't have all the immunity that an employed police has. So, yes, we have to use the censorship issue and get it on documents where we actually start putting it into the courts, into the juries, and we not only are doing complaints, but we're also doing notices with opportunities to cure, and then doing it with like a process where you're giving them time to do it, and if they don't respond, then they accept our terms and our evidence versus their fakes. So it's a little combination of going after the lower people on the totem pole, anybody paid to tell these lies and to censor. They always say that these fact checkers are not associated, that they're unbought. That is far from the truth, easily proven. Okay? They are twisting the truth into making it fake, and they're putting out what's fake as reality, and they're backing it up across the board, all of them, and they're all paid to back it up. Everybody's getting paid for this. The hospitals, a couple of nurses woke up, a couple of doctors woke up, and look what happened to them. We have to use this in a way where it's all in writing. So by the time the military gets it, it's not only the grand jury verdict, we also have notices, and we have proof that this censorship is the truth, and this BS that you're touting is not the... So you understand that's like 5 different levels. The low people on the totem pole, anybody paid, anybody who's a public spokesperson in the public eye can be challenged through text, through video, through audio, through evidence compiled and even put into their privatized foreign banks. So there is some hope to this, And if you read that link there, it shows a couple of steps going on. Even Kennedy's going in on this deep. He's going to rob the one Kennedy that's been against taxes. That's the kind of stuff. And then we have other media outlets, like I showed you the Life Force one, the Real V that Charles just notified me he watched that documentary. He's going to, in another month, or I think it might be 2 months, he's going to have his own TV station. So there's going to be other outlets for us to broadcast. These people are lying. Here's the evidence. These fact checkers are lying. Here's the evidence. And look, follow the money. They're all getting paid from the same Gates Foundation. So we have to simplify it so that the people that don't really know what to do, the people that are really scared, the ones wearing the mask that don't know what to do, the people that have lost their life business, where we can simplify it for them so that we show them one little level at a time, and then before you know it, they're on. It all comes down to the censorship. The censorship is evident. It is blatant black and white evidence that these people are the bad guys, and these people telling the truth are actually the good guys that are locked up. So I don't want to compare it to the Colorado 12 or 11, however many there were, because we're in a whole new world now. Everything has changed. The timeline's changed. Whatever was honorable in the past, because some of the police are honorable. Their hands are just tied. They have to follow the orders. They can't go against the orders, or else they wind up fired. So when the police start getting defunded and laid off, they're going to come to our aid, and they rightfully better, because they're going to get assassinated just like history always does. They always eliminate the agents after they did their job. They're going to be replaced by robots and technology. So things are in flux, people. It's a spiritual thing. We have to set the example for the others that are lost and scared and don't have any choice. They don't even have any options except to follow these ridiculous rules that make no sense. Because I'm seeing a bigger picture. My sister is a flight attendant. I can't believe what I'm seeing, what's going on globally by what she's photographing wherever she goes. It is insanity.
Scotty.
I yield. Go ahead.
Thank you, Scotty. It's nice to share the microphone a little bit. Yeah, we got an echo here. It sounds like. Yeah, Michael, and I just wanted to put a break in the context there in case Michael or Abraham would like to comment or help re-guide the discussion in a constructive manner here.
This is Mike, Florida. I kind of at an impasse here. Unless we can develop a greater consensus and direction, we as a group are at an impasse, I guess. Maybe the group is at an impasse with me. I speak for myself. I'm not prepared to sign on a document defined as a jury at this time. I would be if it was defined as an instructional, educational jury, but at this time, that's as far as...
I thought you said that you didn't want it to be a moot court. You wanted it to be a real jury verdict.
Well, just because you change the name or add a word to the name does not make it a moot court. Why would a name change make it a moot court?
Well, if you say you're moot, then the de factos probably aren't going to listen to you because you already confessed that your jury verdict has no legal significance.
See, I guess that's, maybe we have made progress. I think that's the point where we're maybe not communicating. I don't feel renaming it or adding a word to the name makes it a moot court. The consensus or the consent of the governed is still, a lawful determination. Whatever name you give it, whether it be a town hall meeting, an assembly, an instructional court, an instructional jury, I just don't want to name it anything that de facto calls it, and avoid being prosecuted for simulating a legal process. That's what I'm at.
Sure. Can you reference the specific wording on the complaint, the jury verdict, the general one that you find to be problematic? Is it the phrase Supreme Court of Law? What is the specific wording that you find problematic here, Michael?
Well, it's potentially problematic is the word I would use, potentially. And that's only because the de facto is unpredictable and they're not trustworthy and they don't obey the very laws they claim to uphold. So by avoiding naming it a Supreme Court or a court at all would probably serve us better and avoid the entanglement of prosecution, of accusation of simulating a legal process. It's still the consent of the governed. This is the goal here. Assembling the consent of the governed is our goal, and manifesting that in a lawful manner. Changing the name or adding a name to it does not nullify the legality or lawfulness of the Assembly's consensus. I think that's the main point that we need to realize. The consent of the governed is our
point well taken, Mike. I want to ask you a question, Mike, out of curiosity. Have you read the 13 pages of the complaint?
No, I haven't, and I just unfortunately haven't had the time in this past week.
Okay, because I will suggest to you that once you read the 13 pages of the complaint, if you've got trouble with the title, you're going to have trouble with almost every paragraph in that complaint.
Well, I probably wouldn't have any difficulty with the content of the complaint because I'm sure it's truthful and honest and accurate. But again, it's just referring to ourselves as a court is I think the difficulty we'll face if we do that. And anyways, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Do you realize that the Sixth Amendment refers to districts where all criminal prosecutions shall take place, and that is small local communities that I believe amount to the precincts, and there's about 300,000 of them all across the USA, and those institutions exercising criminal jurisdiction, judicial power, are universally referred to as courts. Do you comprehend how that word court, the federal government doesn't have the right to monopolize courts, that word. You reckon, obviously, the states have their own courts in the municipal government, so and the states aren't getting prosecuted by the feds for being something different than the Fed court system.
No, that's not the concern. The concern is the universality of the term court that they have forced upon the nation. You know, it's the acquiescence of the counties and the states that we have to fear. In 1946, when they changed the rules of procedure and eliminated presentment, the rest of the courts followed suit, and it didn't happen instantly, but today, as we know it, presentments are not allowed by a jury. Independent sovereign jury. It is not allowed. It is forbidden. And if you try to do it like Terry Trussell, here we had a man that was a jury foreperson, a legitimate, authorized jury foreperson of the de facto. And he tried...
Weren't those grand juries?
I'm sorry?
Weren't those grand juries?
I believe it was a. What wouldn't it be not a grand jury, but
a trial jury?
Yeah, it was at the county level. A petit maybe jury.
Well, a petit jury is a trial jury.
Okay, yeah, and he committed a runaway. That's the greatest thing these de facto people fear is a runaway grand jury. And
well, that's not a trial jury. Runaway does usually refer to grand juries, not trial juries. It sounds like you're talking about a grand jury there rather than a trial jury.
Well, it was a runaway. That's the bottom line. He was not following their prescription. He was following, the due process of we the people.
Well, it wasn't common law due process because he didn't do a trial jury. He did a grand jury.
Okay, but still, the point is the same, that he was trying to do what was right, and he had the authority to do what he did. And because they don't recognize law, they do what they want. They commit tyranny, and they put him in jail.
Sure.
Am I missing something?
Well, it, with all due respect, brother, it seems like you're awfully apprehensive, entrenched in your apprehension here. And I've thrown pretty much most of the best arguments I can think of at you, and it doesn't seem to be, you don't seem to be assigning the same weight to my arguments as I assign to them. And,
but Charles, there's no issue here. He just doesn't have to sign the complaint. That's all.
I know, but he's a key player, and we need to decide how closely we're going to be working with Michael in all of this. I'm not interested in constructing something that I think is inferior, that is taking our power away, removing the word court from what we're doing when this is a universal term. The courts, the system of the courts, the courts are the...
If he's uncomfortable signing the document, that's not a problem. We find 12 people to sign it. He doesn't have to sign it.
I agree. Michael's a free agent, and we go ahead and try to move forward with other people that seem to be more easily harmonizing with us. And maybe Michael will jump on later on or something after more of this.
Let me ask you something, if I may.
Sure.
Would you be opposed to calling it the People's Court?
We could call it the Supreme People's Court of Law for the USA or something like that.
Okay.
Would that work for you?
Well, I'm not saying it'll work, but that's a step in the right direction. That's
all right.
Yeah,
we could throw in.
Can participate in Charles. This does not have to be a sticky point. Please let it go.
What'd you say, Abraham? I didn't hear you.
There's 100 other capacities Mike can function harmoniously. Just because he's uncomfortable signing that document, that's fine. There's 100 other capacities that he can function in productively. Just let it go, please.
Oh. Wait a second, Abraham. Apparently you didn't hear his last words. We're making consensus on maybe putting the whole thing together because I agreed that we can add people in the title of the Supreme Court of Law there.
Yeah, but you see, if you have 30 people and one of them does not want to sign on to the document because they're uncomfortable with it, that's fine. I don't understand why you have to make it an end-all, be-all issue.
Well, because we've only got a few representatives of the conscience of the American people here. We don't have a big number of people. And as long as we're in conference and we're talking about this general issue, we ought to try to make some good faith efforts to hammer out a consensus on it.
Yeah, well, a person convinced against their will is of the same opinion still.
You didn't hear me. You didn't hear me.
I did hear you.
we're making progress by adding the word peoples to it. I just made that suggestion. He said yes, and now you're jumping in and saying abandon it.
He said yes with reservation.
Yeah, but he's thinking about it. That's a big step forward from where he was.
Yeah, lessened reservation. Yeah.
Yeah. Nobody.
Okay. Well, is there other words that we could add to lessen your reservations even further, Michael?
It's something I'm going to have to ponder. I really couldn't give any definitive statement right now. Either way, I think we are in the right direction.
All right.
Yeah, I'm not abandoning anything. I'm full steam ahead. Excited, looking forward to the next meeting.
Yeah.
I love the idea of Supreme Court of Law, but I'm the kind of guy that wouldn't mind walking up to somebody, punching them in the nose, if I was justified.
Yeah. Well, and we could add the word peoples there. But obviously, we probably need to give this issue some rest here. We've pretty exhaustively discussed it at this point in time, and we can sleep on it and review the issue again in the next conference.
If I may, I concur with the people for the. Actually, that's what Life Force calls it. They call it the people for the people. I've heard that in one video, not the video I shared with you. But yeah, it's just a little bump in the road. It's not a a dead end that you can't cut through. It sounds like it's something that we have to try and address, but it doesn't sound like something that should be a game changer or ender. I yield.
Yeah. All right.
If I may, I just wanted to add something, Charles. You were mentioning how we are the conscience. This small group is acting as the conscience of America. I believe were the words you used, or is that close to it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to accurately represent what you said. This has been the problem I've had for a long time with the several grand jury movements that have been all over the country, is that when you claim, and I don't mean you as you, Charles, or this particular group, I'm talking about the movement in general. When you claim to represent or be the conscience of the nation, you have to be ready to give an answer to your opponent, the critical masses, when you introduce your strategy to them that you are acting as the conscience of America. They would say to you, and I have had this happen, I've done this as an experimental process, just in random conversation. I would say, well, there's a jury forming, and we're determining that our government's out of control, and they would say to me, well, how many people did you have? It's like the Thursday night call. They say they have 18 to 22 states represented, but most of those states have one person on the call representing the entire state of millions of people. And to most common thinking people, to have one person represent them that was self-appointed is an absolute joke. And you really can't argue with them. So my point is this. I think it would also serve us better if we would find a way to gain our numbers and get people from a wider perspective and a greater cross-section of the people. We need to have more people other than, the cream of the crop here. We need to have people that are possibly of a democratic persuasion, and hopefully the common denominator is going to be freedom, preserving justice. Those are the two common denominators that we all should agree on. And I think the more people that we have that are diverse from us, from our little group here, would be good for us to achieve. And I think most people, when they hear that, you're forming a jury, would also agree with that strategy, that the greater cross-section of people you have, the more accurate the representation is. I yield. Food for thought. That's all. Food for thought. I yield.
Sure. No doubt, the numbers are critical ingredient that we do need to promote. No contest there. But the conscience of the community, that requires that's an abbreviated phraseology for the fully informed and members of the community that have functional consciences. There's a lot of people that don't have functional conscience. We don't. My point is, thank you. Secondary point is, we don't need everybody. We need the fully informed people that are honorably concerned about what's going on in America, and thereunder we and if I might put it in a bit different context that gets kind of metaphysical, we need to be talking in terms of objective justice for the common people, objective as opposed to subjective and private. We're not serving a private interest here. We're serving the interest of all of the American public people. Okay? And with regard to this coronavirus militarism, military police state response that's going down, it's not rocket science to figure out that this is a bad thing. The fully informed people of America have consensus that what's coming at us here is a bad thing. It's serving a private agenda that's probably engineered by Bill Gates, his own private interest, and other people that are in conspiracy with him that don't give a darn about the public people. They're serving their own private interest. But where under our verdict is not fully informed on everything, not everything in the universe, but on whether or not forcible vaccinations by the military should be tolerated, we can do an objective conscience of the community unanimous verdict on whether or not that's a good thing. That should be a real simple issue to develop an objective consensus amongst the well-informed people of America about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can't disagree with anything. Yeah.
Okay, well, you see, at that point, and especially if during the proceedings, before we issue any arrest warrants or anything, we invite their people in to discuss, to present their side of the story. And our jurors listen and hear their side of the story, and then our jury unanimously makes its decision after full and fair opportunity has been given to all sides to present their best story, and then the jury verdict is rendered based upon the organic conscience of the community of the American people, and in an objective manner and in the interest of justice and keeping the peace for everybody in America.
Charles, I would say this, that if it was just us 12, if we had 12 people and we made the jury verdict, I don't think you could ask 300 million people in America if they agree with the verdict. And I would think every single man, woman, and child in the country would agree with the verdict that nobody needs to be forcibly vaccinated. If they want to take it voluntarily, they're more than welcome to. But to have it forced on them, I don't know that anybody would disagree with that.
But you surely, Abraham, you know enough about the evil empire, the dark state, whatever you want to call it, that they're not going to tell us in advance that they're going to have military coming out here and forcibly vaccinating us. They're going to wait till the last minute, and then they're going to show up on our doors doing it. That's probably how it's going to go down. If it goes down, I'm afraid there's a danger it will. But it'll probably go down in a manner like that. that's why Trump is being ambiguous right now, is because he's kind of warning us, but he's not really warning us. So I think we're in real serious danger here, and I think backing off from our most powerful Seventh Amendment jury verdict here is a fatal error. Anyway, yeah, maybe I don't want to overly pick on this particular issue or exhaust Michael. We have covered a lot here, and maybe everything will be clearer to us in the next few days as we all sleep on it. Maybe I'm in error. Maybe I'll wake up and think of something way better. This is a real healthy discussion, and we do have other issues that we can be talking about too.
If I may.
Yeah, Michael, go ahead.
I believe this is the pertinent issue of our day, of the time, of the hour. Has anyone on the call been at their local county commission meeting and made any kind of determinations or proclamations that if any county or state agency tried to force them to be vaccinated, that they would resist violently?
Oh, your wording there, the word violence and violently is a word to describe unlawful use of force.
Okay, I correct myself.
Yeah,
that word.
Yeah. You resist with force. Yeah.
If I may clarify and retract my statement.
Sure,
out of ignorance,
sure.
I made that statement. Has anyone made a proclamation or a statement that they would resist any forced effort to vaccinate? Has anyone had that conversation publicly in a county town hall or a county commission meeting? I yield.
I have had something similar here in Coleman County. I haven't made that exact statement, but I have presented paperwork and arguments about what's going on with this coronavirus thing. I've said that it's all a big disguise. The economy and the stock market's collapsing because the Federal Reserve bankers can't hyperinflate anymore, and so now they're moving into foreclosure to take everybody's property away. I've said things like that are really confrontational and provocative in front of them, and it is related to the coronavirus issue, because I've said that the coronavirus thing is just an excuse to take all the property and reduce the American people to slaves. So that's pretty much what I told them, which is rather similar to, I think, what you're alluding to. I yield.
Mike, expand on that. Whether it's answer yes or no, what's your position? I mean, what is it you're trying to lead to?
Well, I think we first need to make it known at our local level that we are not willing to be vaccinated by force. And
okay, so you mean like a test, a dry test, a dry run.
Yeah, exactly. Verbal dry run. We need to put them to the test
and see what kind of blowback you'll get.
Exactly.
Well, I think you may get some ferocious blowback.
Well,
sure. by making a proclamation that you will resist any forced attempt at vaccination? You think they would?
Yeah, because they'll take that. Yeah, they'll take that as you trying to be a public threat. In other words, I've had people when I would go into the stores without a mask, I would have people walk around me like there was a force field, that they didn't want to get within 30 feet of me because I wasn't wearing a mask, because they thought that I was a biological weapon. So if you're saying that you're going to act as a potential biological weapon in a community and devastate an entire community because you have some paranoid delusion that you're going to be assassinated upon vaccination, they will declare you public enemy number one.
Well, we've already done it in our county, and nothing of the such happened.
Well, that's amazing.
Fact, yeah, it
nothing.
my fiance.
Nothing overt. Nothing overt, but I'm certain they took notes. Just like on the Bundy, when the Bundy issue was going on, I'm certain the FBI took notes of all those ex-vets that were up in the mountainsides, up on the bridge, holding the sniper rifles down on the BLM federal troops, right? The FBI took note of all the people who resisted. They didn't do anything at the time. They acquiesced. But a lot of those guys went to jail later on.
Right, I am aware of that. But making a statement that you will not accept forced vaccinations and that you will resist it, that is not a criminal statement. That is not a statement of unlawfulness. That is simply a proclamation that you are defending yourself from being shot with a poisonous chemical.
If I may.
Yeah.
Thank you. If you've studied emergency war powers resolutions that are alienating us from all of our constitutional rights, as I've written about in the constructive notice of treason and supportive citations documents, when they declare an emergency, constitutional protections are aborted. We have to attack the root issue, which is whether or not this is a real emergency here. And that's why paragraph 4 in that one, the supplement to the jury verdict there, at the end of page 3 is pivotal, and I need to expand that section that says clearly that there is no legitimate emergency. Their science is bad. They're lying. They're here to serve a self-serving agenda to enslave our American people. And once that is point number 1, then we go on to point number 2. If you try to move with force to enforce this private self-serving agenda against us, then we have the right to resist with whatever force is necessary the criminal conspiracy that you're bringing against us. At that point, we've got the foundation laid, and we've got the superstructure built on top of it for our militia people, like what was so heroically shown there at the Bundy Ranch standoff. Those guys are great, and they will rally around us if we're producing some type of something that will give them legitimacy to resisting with arms. But so long as we're talking about advisory, educational type of documents, how they're ready to start pulling triggers on corrupted federal agents if they start breaking the law on the Bundy Ranch or Branch Davidians or Montana Freeman or anybody else that they decide to prosecute. And our juries need to be laying legal foundations so that when that conflict does erupt next time around, our people can cite a jury verdict from a Supreme Court of law for the USA that gives them color of legitimacy for their executing those criminal Nazi jackbooted thugs that are posturing as federal public servants. I yield.
Yeah, and it's all the reason that we need more people involved.
Well, certainly, no doubt.
Charles, very well put. Very, very well put.
Thank you. And we do need the people, but when we start doing things that are a bit more confrontational here, all of a sudden these militia people will be looking at that paperwork and going, "Hey, wait a second, this might actually be useful for what I do." Because these are gun rights people. They're not only talking about vaccinations, they're talking about taking away the guns and stuff too. And those guys aren't going to roll over and play dead. They need us to have jury verdicts on the gun rights issue and all kinds of other issues that we should be making all kinds of jury verdicts that are serious jury verdicts, not just advisory or educational, but serious jury verdicts and that are labeled as legitimate courts. There's over 300,000 precincts that all have the right, all across the USA, that all have the right to have that general jurisdiction, judicial power of that's referred to in the Sixth Amendment to try crimes. There's 300,000 basically vacant offices all across the USA for those courts. They're part of the constitutional concept of federalism to decentralize all power right down to the grassroots of the people. And if we're avoiding using words like court, then we're taking away a big chunk of our ability.
It gets watered down. Charles, I got a question, Charles. So if we set up the first jury verdict with the Supreme Court of Law, let's say at a Coleman, Texas, but it represents people all over, the jurors are represented all over different states, and then of these 300,000 townships or jurisdictions, let's say they follow suit, and you get another 1,000 different Supreme Court of laws throughout the country coming up with the same jury verdicts from their own townships. Now that would be incredible.
Yeah. And it's the most powerful, lawful tool of law that we've got available to us, that anybody, any community has available to them. And if we're going to fight back, we need to be using our powerful tools. We're up against a big, powerful enemy, and they're not going to roll over and play dead unless we really mess with their corrupted bar association-controlled legal monopoly. But the conversation has turned a bit intense. We probably ought to sleep on it and maybe wind down, change the subject a little bit, or even call it a conclusion. I don't know what y'all want to do here. I'm up to chatting some more, but I think we've rather quite adequately
beat that horse.
You can, beat the horse, chewed on that bone. We need to give everybody time to sleep and think about what the important issues that have been discussed thus far, and we do have other issues like the qualified electors affecting this U.S. presidential election and other things on the agenda too that we could chatter more about, or we could, maybe encourage Nancy and or Nikki to come in and talk about the more general issues that they specialize in, and Scotty. We could open it up for more general discussion now that we've chewed this bone so thoroughly. I'm open to comments or suggestions. Are you? Should we think about maybe concluding the conference here?
I would love to hear what Nikki has to say.
Nikki, how you doing?
I'm doing fine. They changed the online meeting things, and I'm not quite sure what I'm doing here. But you just let me know if there's anything I can do. I know that in 2014, when with the National Liberty Alliance, what we did, there was about 5 of us, and we tried to do a smooth transition with the magistrate courts, the district courts in every area, every town, and say, hey, look, when people walk in, why don't we just go ahead and give them an option whether to resolve their issues, their complaints with another person by an administrative process, and if they can agree to disagree on certain areas, then maybe go before a mediator to work things out so that they can get things resolved. If they fully agree with each other, as far as with the original administrative process thing, notice of fault and give them an opportunity to cure, then it would be a done deal. And if they come to like an agreement, like I just said, and can mediate what they both want to come to a conclusion that way, that'd be fine. And if they can't, then take it before a jury. And if that doesn't work, then go ahead and take it before the not the administrative, but the court process, that is the equity courts. And anyway, we were making some progress with it, but the powers that be, it had to be done through a legislative process, and the legislators didn't want anything to do with it because that's their paycheck. What they are is they're, a protection racket for the criminal enterprise that's set up in 1913, and it pays them their gift money with the Federal Reserve notes. So, and I even got that in a transcript from a judge in December last year.
So what you're saying is they didn't concede to your suggestions?
I'm sorry, say that again, you were breaking up.
So what you're saying is they did not concede to your suggestions to expedite the process?
That's correct. So what I did was, there was 5 of us, like I said, but I said that now there's a plan B. I said, you could take this before the Senate, because it was a senator that we were conversing with in his office, and the aides loved it. There was 3 aides in the room, and they loved what we were presenting. And I said, well, there's a plan B. I said, let's go ahead and what you can do is introduce legislation that they leave us alone, that the powers that be, and I didn't quite say it like that, but I can give you a copy of what it is that I submitted to them, that they have to leave us alone, because otherwise they would be, breaking the law, basically. With barratry, maintenance, and champerty, that's what they go by, the exciting of lawsuits through legislative process, and then the maintenance of their own ilk, the esquires, in saying, well, you need a prosecutor, you need a public defender, so we have to fund public defenders and stuff like that, to use the monetary system to do that. And the third thing is champerty, and champerty is the splitting of the spoils afterward, because, of course, when they take everything you have and then they're able to throw you in jail or whatever, they're still collecting more money because, hey, they're paying for your keep, So, and they're producing the notes that pay the people who take care of them, and for pennies on the dollar, and that's the way the system works, and it's all there. There's proof of everything that I'm saying there. But
yeah.
I'll go ahead and I'll send you what we sent to them back in 2014, and as far as the Plan B goes.
Wow.
Because that goes back to the 10th Amendment. We've had no representation in Congress, so the laws that are being made and implemented to keep us in a condition of voluntary servitude, with which if we do not comply, then, this is the only thing that the state senators can do, is just listen to our complaints and just shrug their shoulders,
Yeah. Wow.
But what I did was a cost analysis, and I showed the county people how they could save quite a bit of money, millions of dollars, because the state actually pays for the magistrate judges, who are able, incidentally, to keep their own businesses going, their own law firms going, while they are magistrate judges. So, I mean, right there, that's kind of like a strange thing to do. And
conflict of interest?
Yes, a conflict of interest, yes, and they get paid $86,000 a year. And the Supreme Court of Pennsylvania was, in 2010, they had an article in the newspaper that they wanted to cut costs by reducing the number of magistrates in a given area, the county-wise. So I went ahead and crunched the numbers, and in 2014, like I said, and they had, I think they had increased the magistrates in Lackawanna County by 3. So there was like 11 magistrates, or I'd have to go back and look at the paperwork, but what I'm saying is that they actually raised the pay that they were given from $80,000 a year to $86,000 a year, which is quite a bit of money. And then the 11, I believe it was 11 district offices, but I can go back and look and do a reality check, it cost like $1 million, a couple of $1 million per area, to operate. And I showed how the cost could be reduced both on a county level and on a state level. And that's the way I presented it.
They're milking the people blind.
I'm sorry.
They're milking the people blind.
Oh yeah, well, and if the thing is that we're being taxed, but yet seniorage. Do you know what the word seniorage means?
No.
Oh, okay. See, we lose the word and we lose the concept it conveys. I will SEI, if I spell it right, yeah, SEIG. Okay, I'm going to drop the link. I don't see how screen sharing is done with this. But I will drop the link in a chat here, and
okay.
You can go ahead and click it on, and you'll see that if you scroll down a little bit, the key takeaways, and then seniorage explained. Seniorage may be counted as revenue for a government when the money it creates is worth more than it costs to produce. This revenue is often used by governments to finance portions of their expenditures without having to collect taxes. If, for example, it costs the U.S. government 5 cents to print a $1 note, the seniorage is 95%, or the difference between the two amounts. I will send you what it costs currently. Okay, the cost of printing from the Federal Reserve Board. I thought you guys knew this.
Well, no.
I think most of us did.
Okay, well, I'll give you, because it's gone up in the past few months. So it used to be 5.5 to print a note of any, or not any denomination, but $1 or $2 note. And now it is 7.7 cents. And here is the latest. I'm putting it into the chat area here. If I can paste it in there. There you go. Oh, I did it. I didn't do it twice. I did it once. Okay. And when I started learning about this back in '96, it was a 1993 book that I had from Richmond, Virginia, and the Federal Reserve Bank there. And it was 3 cents to print a note of any denomination. Now, of course, they have all the gizmos in there and the color and everything else. Is the currency is a little bit different now, and it costs a little bit more. So when I started to think about it, I thought, oh my goodness, for every $10 of my labor, I have a $10 note that only costs 3 cents to print. Somebody is pocketing $9.97 into their pocket by printing this note, which I have to pay an extra 20% income tax on, which makes it $11.97 that I am indebted to the Federal Reserve? Wait a minute. Because the IRS, works with them. And then I thought to myself, wait a minute, when silver was taken out of the coin back in 2000 or in 1971, since then I have been the creditor. They owe me that money. I want that money. Right?
Nikki, are you familiar with the term hypothecation?
I'm familiar with the term, but off the top of my head, I couldn't give you a definition. But you're talking about pretty much the same thing, right?
It seems like it could be very similar, except it's using identity to generate revenue.
Well, yes, and that's what it's been. It's been either the Social Security number or the birth certificate. The hypothecation of that. Yes.
Right.
In fact, land banks. The estate that I am executrix of here. Well, the estate has been, and without full disclosure, land bank, because it's been, my uncle was paying taxes on it and everything, and it's never been put into their dominion, and they're never been revenued as far as the family knew, because it has never been mortgaged. The last piece of property was bought in 1945 here, and it's never been remortgaged. It's, so... It's
when you say revenued, that's the expanded term of revenue, isn't it?
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep, and current is an adjective. When you hear it's an adjective, currency, current, and the current is the money that's used, and that is in the 1891 dictionary as used as an adjective, and it describes the money that is being accepted and being used. So whenever you hear these politicians talk about current policies, current government, current, economics and things like that, they're talking about the current money system since 1913. It's all coded language. And knowing that states meant nobility, when they're talking about our democracy, well, it says we're supposed to be a republic, but our democracy, they're using code words for themselves,
Would you say that's Orwellian?
I would. I would agree. But if you're looking at that Federal Reserve, and if you're looking at that link, you'll see that each year the Federal Reserve Board projects the likely demand for new currency and places an order with the Department of the Treasury Bureau of Engraving and Printing, which produces U.S. currency and charges the board for the cost of production. So right there.
And they get the difference between the cost of production and the value of what's put into the system.
And that's the seigniorage that somebody is pocketing. So what I did with the tax collector just a few months ago, and I'm still, dealing with this, is what I did was I sent the tax collectors for the county and the local tax collector in the school district. I sent them a money order for how much money that the property would be worth in today's dollars based on, or actually how much it'd be worth on the dollar value when the property was purchased compared to today, and I did that with measuring worth. Do you know measuring worth?
No.
I'll give you that, okay. Anyway, measuring worth, and you can figure out how much a dollar was worth, at any given period of time. And what I did, and then I went ahead and I sent them the chart that you see on that Federal Reserve thing, and I sent them the definition of seigniorage, and it said, do your fiduciary duties as seigniorage for this, for the township, and for the county.
So basically, you told them to collect the difference in seigniorage rather than you pay for it.
Correct. Because it says right there that that's the way the system is supposed to work. Do your fiduciary responsibilities.
Did they accept that?
The county did, but the township and the school district didn't. So I went ahead and I challenged that. And I'm still waiting for a response. It hasn't been 20 days yet.
Wow. But you save quite a bit of money in taxes.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah, they're not losing anything if they would go after whoever it is, and it's probably the controller. The controller, I think, is where the buck stops with this. In fact, not tax collector, what would they call? Oh, the treasurer for the county. I happened to be in an elevator with him, and as we were going up to the second floor, I said to him, I said, Mr. Karpovich, I said, who is it that is able to bond the notes that are produced? And he knew what I was talking about because I've talked to him on a couple of occasions, and he turned to me and he gave me a name, and I didn't have anything to write it down with, and he got off the elevator and he was, going quick. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, too bad.
Yeah, but he knows who I am and what I'm about, and so.
Interesting what you're all talking about, but I think a lot of the discussion here is talking about the nature of the problem, and it might be good to try to figure out a way to do alternative economics at the city and county level by talking to the treasurer about these issues, to try to talk about the solution, because the conference call here is like the Thursday evening conferences with Destry and the National Assembly Group. The focus on building the communities, the assemblies,
correct,
at the grassroots level. Yeah, that's where our solutions are at. And when we're talking about things like confronting local city treasurers or county treasurers and stuff, it'd be good to provide the full context of how that current discussion relates to a strategy to taking back the city or county to a local self-governing de jure common law jurisdiction.
Absolutely. And Charles did, I think in the message area on Facebook, I do believe that I had put a brochure in there so that you could take a look at it. And I put it in there probably on Thursday. It was either Thursday or Friday that I did.
I saw it. I saw it.
Okay, so to raise people's awareness that they need to start speaking up, because you have part of the you have part of the issues that are needed to be done, as far as not self-governance necessarily, but as far as the judicial system in the area goes, in transferring the powers back to the people.
Thank you.
Charles, I could see what she's talking about, how it could relate to fundraising very easily. If she saved that kind of money on the difference between what her house was worth when it was built or purchased, as opposed to what it's worth now with the artificial inflation, and she can go save, $2,000 or $3,000 a year on her taxes by going ahead and using the signage in order to make the adjustments so they could charge the Federal Reserve or however the hell they do it. Hell, you could sell that information and do that for other people, teach them how to do it, and if you charge them $100 and they could save $2,000 or $1,000 a year, boom, there's one way to raise funds.
Yes, no doubt. But there's other similar and maybe even more powerful options on the table if we're talking about our own local community currency and banking system. We've got a lot of really powerful options on the table. There's the CAFRs, there's all kinds of things that are potential to produce economic empowerment. We're not going to get anything until, like Michael says, we need a larger number of people marching to the same tune, following the same program here. Once we do that, then there's safety in our numbers. Then we can push the envelope on our lawful remedies. Right now, we don't have enough people behind us to where we can risk moving forward with our lawful remedies, or else we're liable to get railroaded off into jail. So there's danger here. There are better, numerous options for economic empowerment. But as long as it's divorced from the issue of responsible self-governing, I think that's a distraction. I think the issue of our local assemblies, our local self-governing communities with the full judicial power and their own courts, I think that is the prioritized issue. And then we can talk about how to supplement the local community treasuries at the precinct and the township level through such alternative funding sources as what Nikki's talking about here with seniorage and the other similar systems like the CAFRs. All of that stuff can be taken into play once we've got our own local court systems and our own local self-governing bodies, jural assemblies in place for the precincts and the townships and things. I yield. Well, everybody, I don't think we've gotten much over 6 or 7. I think in past conferences we've had like 28 people. And I imagine the next conference will be bigger. Can y'all hear me? Anybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, very good.
Yeah, I hear you, yeah.
Yeah.
I noticed there was hardly anybody on tonight, too. I thought that was strange.
Yeah. Maybe you didn't hear the story, Scotty, but Michael and Abraham and I were on the Thursday evening conference with National Assembly in the Michigan area there with Destry and everything, and especially after the main meeting, there was a follow-up meeting there, and Destry was in there, and a number of us confronted Destry about inhibiting the ability for the free-flowing conferences after the later part of the main meeting. And it turned quite colorful and intense in the tone of the debate. And some of us here were thinking, including myself, that maybe there's been an orchestrated effort to from the fellows that you were questioning their legitimacy. Maybe they've retaliated by calling a lot of the people and telling them not to come on a conference anymore. That's kind of a conjecture. Probably shouldn't even dwell on that too much, but it certainly is strange that we've gone from, I think we had 28 at the peak last week or so, or the week before, and now we're down to just 6 or 7 or 8 at the most here.
Yeah,
so
well, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I was busy on Thursday. I haven't had a busy week. In fact, I missed an hour of this. What did you do in the beginning for the first hour? Anything important?
Yeah, we covered some important stuff. I forget what it is right now. The recordings are easily available if you look at your email.
Yeah, I've been busy. I haven't listened to any of the recordings yet. And the beginning conferences were like really off the charts, like wow. But anyway, that's okay. We're doing the right thing, and as we get more together, we can get more people on, and it could be fresh new people. That's why I think I may be able to provide some input to get people.
Okay.
And I think that's my gift. But yeah, thanks for that commentary. And it's very interesting what you were saying, Nikki. I didn't know half of that. What you were more than half of that. Yeah, very interesting angle. I got to let that seep in my brain a bit. And you sound really on Abraham. I got to give you some credibility on a lot of stuff. I really must admit, you really are really on point. And even the fact that
Nikki's been at this. Nikki's been at this a lot longer than I have in an academic way. I've just got topical overview, but she's got some in-depth information. I've known Nikki now for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years maybe.
Yeah, it's been about that. Yeah,
Yeah, I look at your stuff you post. I save the stuff you post. Yeah, I learned from a lot of that stuff. You can't read it on my computer, but it doesn't matter. We're leading by example. There's people every day that are waking up, that are backed into a corner, that have lost stuff. That's when people have ears. When they have some sort of horrible thing, that's what happens with people who learn law. Most people, they only look at the law while they're in trouble. As soon as it goes away, they drop it. Well, this isn't going away. So we're going to have a consistent base of people not knowing that we can offer solutions and information and really help on any aspect, from making electricity for yourself to doing paperwork to even you, Nikki. You should have had a recording device with you to record that. What's the law there? Is it a one-party rule there to record conversations like it is in New York? I can record anything I'm a party to the conversation to it with no problems. But I would think you would have a recording device or 3 like me wherever you go, because you just can't remember stuff like that. Sometimes you never know what you're going to get. I yield.
That's true. Yeah. Well, it's been great. Sorry I tuned in late. I had some other things to do, but anyhow, I love y'all. You guys take care, okay? I see Charles has already left. All right?
Okay. Thank you for joining us, Nikki.
Okay. Thank you for having this. I know that it needs to get done. It's going to get done. It's just a matter of time. Okay. Bye-bye.
We'll see you.
Actually, some of the stuff that kept me busy was stuff you shared with me, Abraham. You shared a lot of stuff. I think there's still one thing I didn't watch that you shared.
Look, Scotty, I saw that video you sent me. I thought you were going to send me the other two. I waited a long time to get them. That first one you sent me that I watched, what was it? Something about the 5th of November?
Yeah, that was the documentary by V, the guy with Red Pill Hardcore on Republic.
Okay. So I watched that very carefully. I took down a bunch of notes. I threw a bunch of terms I was a little unfamiliar with into some search engines, and I'll be studying for weeks some of the content that was on that video. A good portion of that video was on brain mapping, and I watched it very carefully. I was very familiar from stuff because I've studied the brain and neurology extensively. And, not professionally, but of my own curiosity and hobby interest. And I was familiar with a lot of the terms, but he put them together in an arrangement, and I didn't know how far the brain sciences went when they're talking about, brain mapping. And some of the stuff they were talking about was staggering.
Well, you should actually listen to the radio he's on. You can call in. The first hour is usually a guest or they're just speaking. It starts 11 p.m. New York time. And then the second hour, it starts midnight New York time. Callers can call in. And he's on mostly Monday to Friday. Some days Monday is a repeat. Friday sometimes he's live even though it's a Sabbath or whatever. He really, and the people on the, including the callers, really high-end information that can be specific. If you have a question, everybody on the call will chime in their 2%. It really is a amazing platform, and he's about to expand it and get into TV and stuff, just like that Life Force stuff. But yeah, that can be how we can get more people in. We have to have something to offer. Like your lawsuit is good, but a lot of people aren't interested in the law. They're struggling with the kids bothering them and all sorts of these problems from the COVID. So we have to, reach into some of these networks. And you and Charles, we can actually be guests on some of these live calls to spread the word about the websites and the information that we're trying to add to the mix. So we really should start doing that ASAP. We'll maybe ponder it a little bit, but that's available pretty much every night. And I want to add one more thing. I noticed a lot of the hosts and the shows on that network are really high-end content about all sorts of stuff. Some of it not law, some of it's about growing food, some of it is about medical stuff. So that reaching out to things like that, they'll take on any guest anytime if you want something to, to try and bring people on board. We have to use those avenues. It's free, and what could it hurt?
So Scotty, in order to not have Charles beat us up with a bat, why don't you call me after this call if you have time? Call me so we can talk about a couple of things. And I need you to send me those other videos, darn it.
What other videos? Are you talking about the ones I shared in the chat a while back, and then Charles didn't know how to get them out of the chat? Are those the ones you're talking about?
No, you with the 5th of November, you said you were going to send me 2 other ones with it, and then you declined to send them. You said, watch that one first, and then I'll send you the other 2. Don't tell me you forgot.
All right, I got to recheck the emails. I've had a lot of crazy things happening. The mind every day is crazy. But anyway,
well, can you call me after? Call me after this call so that Charles doesn't beat me up with a bat.
Okay. Well, I'm a little bit busy. I may not be able to do it right after the call.
Or whenever you can.
I will continue with that. I'll send you something else. No problem.
No, I want the 2 you were referring to because the title sounded very good. I got to figure out
what they were. I don't know what they were. I don't recall.
You sound like Bill Clinton now.
Well, no. It all depends what the word "is" means.
No, I don't recall. I did not have intercourse with that woman.
The deal is I didn't remember what the videos were, so my intent was to re-listen to the show, and as I listened to the show, each video I put in the chat will come to my mind. Oh, I put that video in the chat because this person said that, and I haven't had a chance to listen to any of the shows
just
yet.
check your emails. Check your emails. You'll probably see them.
My email, and I'll send you something, and then I'll get to listen to that show, and I'll figure out what they all were. Because Charles can't access the chat. They're all in the chat somewhere. Maybe someone on the call can access the chat. They're on, I think it was 3 calls back.
No. This is something you sent me aside.
All right, I'll be on it later. I have to get to my emails. I've been dealing with a lot of things.
Look, Charles, you can handle the board. I got to go take care of a few things before I end up stepping into a pit.
Well, I think we should shut down at this point. It looks from the board like Michael's dropped off, and it sounds like Scotty's winding down. The women are gone. It's just the 3 of us here, I think, and I think we can go ahead and shut her down.
All right, we'll talk later.
I'm
All right.
not winding down. I'm cooking.
Okay.
Well,
no,
I'm not going to sit here and listen to you cook, Scotty.
What?
I'm not going to sit here and listen to you cook.
Well, actually, I'm done cooking. I'm eating now. All right. I yield.
Hey, for reference, there is a second call on the next upcoming week. We're doing one on Tuesday evening also. It's referenced in the conference invitation there, point number 6. So expect an email announcement probably Monday evening about the conference that's going to happen Tuesday evening. We're bringing in some Canadians there to talk about some things on Tuesday evening, and that may be an easier night for a lot of people than these Saturday evening conferences too. So,
okay.
Yeah. It looks like Abraham dropped off. I still see Lewis in the background, I think, but he's probably busy. And so I guess it's just you and me here, Scotty, pretty much. I'm going to shut the recording down. Okay. And they're under, I guess we can chatter for a little bit more, Scotty, but...
well, no, I missed the first hour. Do I have to wait for that to come on, or can I listen to that now?
I think you could probably listen to it now through the web page that is referencing the free conference call, where our web page for our conference hosting is.
Okay, because I really learn from listening back when I take notes. It's hard to take notes when it's going on live. I just take notes of what it is I have to re-listen to. But my learning process, it actually comes from after I read it, after I write it. I don't learn it from writing it, but as I read it and then reread it, it takes a while to get this stuff in my brain. I had a struggle to learn this law stuff. It's not as easy as some of the other stuff I know. However,
redundancy really helps burn it into your brain, especially the main principles, the gems that are precious in these volumes of data that are swirling past us. Under the web link is under freeconferencecall.com, and then on our Supreme Court of Law subsection there's a menu. And in left column near the top, there's a pull-down menu, and under that pull-down menu that starts out menu, there's about the 5th item down is history and recordings, and if you click on that, that'll take you to a new page where you should be able to listen to the recording. I'm pulling it up. It looks like it may be completed and ready to play. Right now, no, but it'll probably be ready within 20 minutes, an hour, something like that.
Okay, I didn't actually follow what you said for those instructions, though.
Okay, well, the web...
If it pops up in 20 minutes, can you mail it to me?
No. Can you look at the web link in the conference invitation so you can go there to look at it yourself?
All right, I'll try. Okay. Peace.
Yeah. All right, I guess I'm going to call it an evening here, Scotty. Take care.
All right. Abraham was right that you did word that properly earlier, where he gave you credibility for saying, because you don't want to use the word violence or whatever. Force is the word. You'll use force up to and include. You really did word that really great. You really have a great way with words. I'm not jealous.
Thank you. I don't get
I'm not jealous
enough.
They're spells. I'd rather.
Huh?
I'm not jealous because they're all spells. I'd rather sound like a dumbass and actually see. I actually see things. I don't. Anyway, I don't seem to be like the rest of these people down here.
Well, you're a good enough man to give credit where it's due, and I appreciate that. A lot of people go real petty on me when I try to share my valuable insights. But it's really precious fellows like yourself that throw me a bone once in a while to let me know I'm doing good. I need that kind of positive feedback. It's lonely in a position like what I got here, you know.
Yeah, I hear you, brother. It's not easy wearing my boots, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you're gonna wrap
even though I get, huh?
So you're gonna wrap up the call and stop the recording?
Yeah. I'm gonna shut her down here, Scotty, and do be looking probably Monday evening. I'll send out the invitation for the Tuesday evening call, and I hope you can join with us then.
What time Tuesday? Not 5 o'clock, I hope, right?
Right, 7 p.m. Eastern.
Okay, that's way better. Okay.
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Bye. Ciao. Good night.
Take care. Bye.
Glad to be part of this. Very glad.
Yeah. Glad to have you here. Bye.
Truly honored. Okay, bye.
Bye.